Might help if I'm on screen. Welcome to Dolly Talk. This is Dolly. How is everybody doing? Oh, we have the rest of day 2 to get through of the Anthony Cummings trial. We got through the state's case. They rested yesterday, and I did the direct of Mr. Cummings. It was pretty short. And then we're going to get through the cross right now. We'll see if he feels you, feels me, feels us, feels the jury. Then I believe there might be another witness, then closing, and I believe verdict. So it's going. Scott is here. Jim. Louise, how are you? State rest before. Yep. Mavka, try to spoil yourself. How you doing, Mavka? Well, you'll find out today. In theory.
Inmate, I don't even do stuff like this. The only reason that I was in that cell is because whether.
Let's go back a little bit.
Sure.
And then when 717 you return, that's where you see Ogletree.
Yeah, that's when I seen Ogletree.
And you saw Ogletree on top of Weatherington, but on the floor, not the bed.
No, they weren't on the bed. They were on the floor.
Okay. Is there anything else you want the jurors to know about this?
Yeah, like, I know you guys don't know about jail and the rules and everything that go in jail. I know that you guys done seen the video and the way that they put the video, but I never, ever, I don't even get in trouble. Not no bad inmate. I don't even do stuff like this. The only reason that I was in that cell is because Weatherton asked me to make sure he don't get jumped and nobody take the rest of his belongings. I did what he asked me, and that's why I was there.
No further questions at this time.
Cross.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Hey, Tracy. Good to see you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Addison, or Mr. Cummings.
Good afternoon, sir.
So I want to start because I want to ask you a little bit about your felonies, because I think you missed a couple of them when you were talking to Mr. Oswald. You're currently incarcerated for failure to comply. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
2 burglary offenses.
Yes, sir.
For weapons under disability.
Yes, sir.
Obstructing official business.
Yes, sir.
Theft.
Yes, sir.
Possession of drugs.
Yes, sir.
And menacing by stalking.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He's a busy boy.
I also want to talk to you about the kites. Mr. Oswald went through all of these kites, 5 different kites. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And all of those kites, he's talking to you, you're requesting to get off of J Block.
Yes, sir.
Not in any of those kites, though, do you complain about getting your stuff stolen, do you?
Not that I recall, sir.
Okay. And the other thing I want to ask you about is because as he was going through the kites, and he's like, you're asking to get off of J Block, nothing happens, no one's allowing you to get off of J Block. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's not actually correct, is it? Isn't it true that before this incident, you were transferred to the G Block, to the G housing unit? Yeah,
but that was because of my culinary.
So hold on, because
Yes,
you made it seem very clear to this jury that you kept requesting to get off J Block, and they wouldn't let you. But after that last kite, you ultimately did get off of J Block, right?
No, all the kites that he read me that I read to them, I got denied on every single one of them. That's what I was answering to. The kites that I sent, I got denied on those kites. So
Later,
I
you did get off of J Block.
Yeah, that was later on, but not to the kites that he read me, sir.
Okay. So let's talk about that. You went to G Block, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Around what time frame?
I really don't recall. It was 2 years ago, but if you know.
Would that have been
Help him
late
out.
October, early November?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you were in G Block for how long?
Got to be like a week or so, a couple
Okay.
weeks.
And tell the jurors, what is the reason that you went to G Block?
I went to G Block because I was in culinary, and if you have a job and you're 90 days ticket free, you can go to the honor dorm, and G Block is the honor dorm.
How long did you last in G Block?
A week.
And you got written up and moved out of G Block, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
So when you were just telling these jurors at the end of Mr. Oswald's questioning, I'm a good inmate, I don't get in trouble, I don't get tickets, when you finally got what you want, when you were begging to be taken off J Block, according to you, you made it to G Block, a different housing unit, and you lasted 1 week before getting written up, getting in trouble, and being sent back to J Block. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty good
Sir,
impeachment.
may I ask you a question?
No.
No.
Let me ask you this, because a lot's been made of the fact that you
I don't
had an
think so,
out
Tim.
date that was coming up pretty soon, right?
Yes, sir.
But even though you had that out date coming up pretty soon, you got in trouble in G Block just a couple of months before you were to be released.
Yeah, it was an in-house infraction. It
Okay.
wasn't no RIB ticket.
You still got in trouble, and as part of a sanction, you were removed from G Block and put back in J.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How well did you know Mr. Wetherington's brother?
We're from the same neighborhood.
Okay. And were you good friends with him?
Yes, we was good friends.
Was his last name Wetherington as well?
No, his last name wasn't Wetherington.
Okay. What was his last name?
Lumpkin.
Lumpkin. Okay.
Lumpkin?
But you then knew Mr. Marquise Wetherington from prior to prison, is that right?
A female I was messing with and a female he had a baby with was friends. That's how I knew him.
Okay.
Female I was messing with.
Okay. And because of that relationship, then in prison, you two kind of hooked up and kind of looked out after each other.
No, just being from the same city in jail, we not from like none of the major cities like Cleveland, Columbus, or Cincinnati. So our little counties stick together in prison.
Little
Okay.
commies stick together?
And it's your testimony that at some point, he is getting stuff stolen from him.
Yes, sir.
And that you are as well. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's gangs that are doing this. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you, because you were housed with a heartless felon. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And so who was stealing your stuff?
Well, when you see on the kites, I wasn't in that room, 2J31. I just really moved into that room because I kited to get, when I came back, I left, actually. How you said I went to G. George.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, just right off the bat, he is much more confident and well-spoken on cross. If we compare to like Theodore Edgecombe, who was just god-awful on pretty light cross. This guy's holding his own so far.
When I came back, they moved me in that room with the felons. After that, nothing came up missing since I was in 31.
Okay, so once you were in with the felons and you were bunking with the felon, your problem stopped.
No, my problem didn't stop. I wouldn't say that, but I didn't have no problem while I was in that room. I was only in that room for not that long, for real, before this incident happened.
Early November to December 7th, right?
Yeah, like I told you, I'm in culinary, so majority of the day, I'm out of the block. I leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. I come back at 10. They lock us down. I go back to school at 11:30, and I get back at 2 o'clock. So I'm gone majority of the day.
Okay. And you are aware that there are no kites from Mr. Wetherington complaining about his stuff getting stolen. Is that correct?
Well, there wouldn't be no kites about anything being stolen. That's why I never wrote a kite about anything being stolen, because that you are considered a snitch. If I write a kite to the COs or to somebody and say, my stuff is being stolen, they got to investigate it. I can say, write a kite and be like, the gang problem is a problem because they know it's infested with gangs. But as soon as I say steal, I'm considered a snitch. So no, you would never say that.
Okay, so you agree there's no kites of him complaining about that.
Yeah.
There's no kites from him within the last weeks or months immediately prior to this incident, even requesting to be taken out of J Block, right?
Well, I'm not on his tablet to know what his kites is, sir.
You had an opportunity to view his kites, didn't you?
No, I got the opportunity. I seen my kites that my lawyer sent me. Them the ones that I read.
Okay. So he comes to you, and I think when you testified, you said about a week before that he comes to you with this idea to fight. Is that right?
No, a week before the cellmate that he had before Addison ever became his cellie. And this is why he didn't have a cellmate no more. His stuff came up missing.
Okay.
And
so when does he talk to you about this idea?
He told me that day, the day December 6th, that was like the last straw. That's when he told me he really wanted he got to fight somebody. Like he didn't want it to keep happening.
But the last time something came up missing from him was the week prior to December 6th?
No, the last time something came up missing was that day, sir.
Okay. So December 6th, he comes to you while you're at Chow. Is that right?
No, we're in the line at Chow, yes. And
Okay.
He's telling me.
What does he say to you?
He think that Addison, because he just became his bunkie that week for real, like a day or so before. He think that he took it because none of his stuff came up missing. So he's telling me like, man, I don't know. I think this dude that just moved in my cell, gang members took my stuff. So now we're in Chow and we pull up and they're the ones that tell us who took it.
You say they're the ones that
The
tell
gangster disciples, like when you go in the Chow hall, or the gangs sit with each other, eat with each other. So when we pulled up on them and
Sleep
asked
with each
them,
other.
like, hey, yo, friend is in my friend's cell. And his stuff ain't come up missing. Like, it's kind of awkward. Like, did y'all go in there and take his stuff? And they was like, nah, we seen the felons go in there.
What was taken on December 6th?
It was food that was taken. His commissary was taken.
Do you remember what time that would have been taken on December 6th?
Had to be before Chow,
Okay.
before lunchtime.
So before Chow,
Chow,
the victim,
please.
Mr. Weatherington's commissary, gets stolen from him.
Yes.
And that would include his food items.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he this, and we figure out that it's not the gangster disciples, and now all of a sudden we believe that it's the heartless felons.
Not believe. They told us.
The heartless felons did?
No, the gangster disciples told us.
Okay. And so
Well,
at
they
that
wouldn't
point,
lie.
Mr. Weatherington says what to you?
They're religious.
Tells me like he can't keep having this happen. Like he got to fight one of them. So
Okay.
at that time, I told him, you feel me? No, at that time, he told me just make sure I don't get jumped or nobody takes the remainder of my stuff.
Does he ask you to help set this up?
No, he tells me that the fight was already about to happen no matter what. So I didn't have to set nothing up. He just told me to make sure that, you feel me, he doesn't get jumped and nobody takes his stuff.
Hold on, because I'm confused. When you say that the fight was already about to happen, he thought up until that moment that it was with the gangster disciples.
Yeah, but when he found out that it was the felons and he told me in line, like he about to fight one of them, and he already had it in his mind that that's what he was going to do.
I'm confused because I thought it was in the line that the gangster disciples come up to you and tell you that it's the felons.
I never told you in the line I said in the line, he told me, he was telling me in the Chow Hall line that his stuff got taken. We walked up to the gangster disciples. That's what I told you. We walked up to their table because they eat together. All gangs eat together. And that's when they told us at that point who took the stuff.
Okay, but then he talks to you about then having to fight the heartless felons, right?
Yeah, he told me that.
And you said that that fight was already set up. So how was that fight with the felons already set up?
It was already in his mind that he was going to fight one of them, but at the Chow Hall, we pulled up on them in Chow too as well. After the gangster disciples told us they took it, we asked them who went in the room and took the stuff.
Okay, just trying to make sure that I follow all of this.
Yes, sir.
He thinks his cell
Hello.
has stolen it.
At
He's
first.
telling you that in the line at Chow. You guys then go talk to the gangster disciples.
Yes, sir.
They say, hey, it wasn't us, it was the heartless felons.
Yes, they tell us that.
And then you two are like, there's the heartless felon table. Gonna walk over to those guys and see if they took it.
Yeah, we pulled up on him like, hey, did y'all take anything out of his cell? And we was talking to them at Chow Hall. And the one table, because they like
Hey,
it'd be
Midwell.
like 3-4 tables. And every block goes to trial with each other. So everybody that's from J. John goes to trial with J. John. So when we pulled up on them at the table, they were low key like laughing about it.
Okay. And so what happens next?
We go back to the block, but this was earlier. We don't come out until later. So my bunkie is a heartless felon. So when we go back to the block and we lock down and we don't come out till later, I tell him,
he's a
like,
good
my
person.
dude just want to catch the
Wait,
ones.
when you say I tell him, who's him? I want to make sure we understand who we're talking about.
My cellmate.
Okay, so you tell your cellmate, who's a heartless felon.
Yes,
right?
sir.
You tell him my bunkie, sorry, go ahead from there.
No, the heartless felon is my bunkie.
Oh, yes, sorry.
We just pulled up on them in child, and they was talking about how they took Weatherston's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't nothing really like, he said at child that he wanted to fight, you feel me? But at that moment,
I
we're not
feel
in the
you.
gang, so, you know, we don't know if it's about to get jumped or what's going to happen when we come out later on. So I tell my bunkie, like, listen, it don't got to be no big nothing. No, he just want to catch the ones with anybody, and that's it.
Okay, so you tell your bunkie, what's his name?
Well, we don't call each other names,
Yeah.
like government names in prison, but his
Government
nickname was
names.
Block.
Do you know his real name?
No, we don't. That's like considered police stuff in prison, calling somebody by the government.
Okay, so you tell him your boy Weatherington wants to fight somebody from the felons.
They already know he wants to fight him. He made that known in child. But I was just basically telling him, like, it don't have to be like no jump-in situation or nothing. He just wants to fight one-on-one over his stuff.
Okay. And let me ask you a question, because I want to make sure that I understand the logic of this. Let's playing this out, okay? So
Yes,
he wants to fight one of the felons because they keep stealing his food.
Yes.
If say that happens, say a felon comes in and Weatherington beats the crap out of that felon, how is the rest of the felon gang going to take that?
That's why they went and got the person that they got. Because he was like, they're basically like their enforcer. Ogletree never wasn't even around to have nothing to do with nothing, but they went and got him once they knew that he just wanted a one-on-one fight. He didn't want nothing more. He just wanted to fight because somebody took his stuff.
But that's what I'm trying to understand, because what doesn't make sense is presumably if he wins the fight, the heartless felons are going to come back as a gang and do even more harm to him. If he loses the fight, the heartless felons win and they keep taking his food.
How do you know that? You've been to prison before? Once you set up something and the person or the head of the block who runs that gang okays it, like, and he says, all right, they can catch the ones, it don't matter if he loses or not. If the head person of that gang says, like, okay, they can catch the ones, ain't nobody gonna jump them. That's what it is. It doesn't go beyond.
Dude, you're losing cross-examination to a career criminal. I mean, come on, dude. It's called cross. You can ask a leading question. You don't have to give them open-ended questions. You don't have to give them the opportunity to come up with snide remarks like, have you ever been to prison? Telling you don't know shit. He's doing really well, all things considered.
No, sir.
So you thought then by asking for this fight, whether...
I didn't ask for the fight.
No, sorry. When Weatherington asked for this fight, the thought was whether he wins or loses the fight, that should end his food getting stolen.
Yeah, he didn't want to be considered as food. Like, he just wanted to, you feel me, show that he'd stand up for himself.
Okay. So you tell your cellmate he wants to fight one of the people that was taking his food, and then your cellmate...
No, I don't tell my cellmate that, sir. I tell my cellmate that they already knew in child, when we pulled up on them in child, that he wanted to fight. It wasn't nothing ever like put together that it was going to be a jump or if they was going to jump him. I was just telling my cellmate, like, can it just be a one-on-one fight? That's all he want, you feel me? He just want a one-on-one fight because somebody took his food.
And what was your cellmate's response?
He said that was cool. Yeah.
And did he tell you who he was going to get?
No, not at first.
Okay. When did you find that out?
Found that out when we came out of our cells that day.
When who came out of their cell?
When we all came out of our cell, see, earlier like what was explained yesterday, one ranger come out in the morning and then one ranger come out that afternoon. We don't come out until that afternoon. So at lunch, it was still morning rec out. We wasn't out until later on that afternoon. So I didn't know who was gonna fight who until we came out of our rooms that afternoon. And we as everybody on J on the second range.
But
What, did the
all of
heartless
this was
felons
set
draw
up that
straws?
day, right?
Yes, sir.
Like eeny meeny, miny mo to
After
see who gets it or
Mr.
not it?
Wetherington's commissary was stolen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you come out of the room. How do we know it's time to fight?
Well, at first, Wetherington, as you can see in the video, when we first came out, we went to dinner. They called dinner first. So when we went to dinner, that's the last chow hall period. So they tell us, they pull up at our table at chow and tell us like basically this is
Hold on, when you say they pull up at our table, who's they? Who are we
two
talking
heartless
about?
felons pull up at our table.
Who did?
Two heartless
Two
felons.
heartless felons. One of them Ogletree or no?
No, it wasn't him. It wasn't him. I didn't see. This is what they tell me. Two heartless felons pull up at our table and tell us that just clear out your room. Y'all can catch the ones, and that's what it's gonna be. I didn't know it was Ogletree until you seen in the video when Wetherington was standing outside his door. And you don't got me in the camera. I don't know why that wasn't even shown. But once he seen me and he walked back in the room, I didn't know it was Ogletree until he went back into the room and was starting to clean out his room that Ogletree was going to be the one to fight him. He pulled up to the phone room and he was like, you go in there first. Make sure that he got the room clean. I'm going to come in there.
Hold on. So you and Ogletree are in the phone room together, right?
Yeah, he came in the phone room.
He comes in the phone room, talks to you, and then says, you go in there first, and then I'm going to follow.
Yeah, because I was already talking to Wetherington. You can't go on that side of the range. So once you see Wetherington outside his cell right there, I'm already in the phone room knowing that he's about to clean out his room. And then when Ogletree comes in, that's when I know that he was doing that to be fighting him.
Okay. And what happens? You go in.
Yes, sir.
What do you say to Wetherington?
When I first go in, I really don't get to say nothing because Ogletree came in like right behind me. So when they first get in there, I'm in the middle of them and we're first really trying to get everything back because they stole it. I thought gangs ain't allowed to steal. And he basically said like, if you're not a part of their gang, they're allowed to steal from whoever. And that's when they got to arguing because he said like Wetherington was like, well, y'all stealing, y'all ain't even taking nothing. Like, how is that tough?
So how long was their conversation?
They was arguing for a little minute. Now that I see on the camera, it was longer than what it was for real.
Because you remember when you were interviewed by the Ohio State Highway Patrol?
No, I really don't remember. I wish I would have came back and showed me my interview like y'all did with Shaquem.
You didn't have an opportunity to watch your interview?
No, sir. Never got to ever. But I know that when I seen the Ohio State Patrol twice, I cooperated with them. I told them everything that I seen and everything that was going on.
Do you remember telling them that as soon as you walked in, Ogletree came in right behind you and boom, he sees the bag hanging up there and he immediately grabs the bag?
Yeah, that's what I just explained to Mr. Oswald as well. They were arguing over the bag and all that, yes.
Okay, so he comes in, and is that right? He immediately comes in, sees the bag, and grabs it.
Not immediately like that. He does come in, and the bag is right there. But words were said, and then he go and grab like, "I take this," and that's when they're sitting there fighting over the bag.
Okay, and this was a set-up fight, right?
Yeah.
But it's your testimony today that when he first walks in there, he wants to talk about why you're stealing his stuff.
No, he wanted to get really not why they were stealing it. Like he wanted like they're stealing, they're not taking it. Like, ain't y'all not allowed to steal type? Like really trying to get the stuff back for real and not even really fight for real.
So it was your thought at that point Wetherington didn't really want to fight?
No, I know he wanted to fight, but if you can get the stuff back and not have to fight, because we know that like we ain't seen Ogletree. That's not even one of the people that we were talking to. So basically trying to tell him like, if we can just get the the stuff back and not even have to do this. We would rather go that route for sure.
What did Ogletree say?
Like I told you before, he said, like, you're not in a gang. Like, we allowed to steal from anybody that's not a felon, basically. That's what he told him.
And then Ogletree grabs the bag.
Yeah, and they both reached for the bag, and I was in the middle of them when they was sitting there tussling over the bag.
Okay, how long does that go on for?
Going on for a second. And then when I grabbed the bag, somebody came and knocked on the door. That's when, because they was sitting there arguing and screaming, and so somebody knocked on the door. One of the felons was like, man, what y'all about to do? Y'all about to fight or what y'all about to do? And that's when I was like, man, if y'all about to fight, y'all about to fight, man. I'm not even trying to get caught out of place. I'm not trying to get into anything that's going on. So at that point, that's when I grabbed the bag, leave the room, put the bag in my next door neighbor's room. And
How did you get the bag if Ogletree and Weatherington were fighting over it?
I told you that somebody knocked on the door. When somebody knocked on the door and said, man, what y'all doing? Like, is y'all about to fight? Fight. If not, you feel me, get this over with. Like, what is y'all doing? And at that point, everybody's attention went towards the door. Like, and when dude said that and the door got shut back, that's when I grabbed the bag and said, man, if y'all about to fight, y'all fight.
You grabbed the bag from who? Because weren't they pulling back?
Yeah, when they was pulling it, like I told you, when they was sitting there arguing over the bag, I'm in the middle of them. Just like I told the Highway State Patrol. I was in the middle of them. We all got the bag. Like this. Everybody got the bag because it was on his bed. So when he went and reached for the bag, Weatherington reached for the bag. Now they sitting here. I grabbed the bag like, man, what is y'all doing, man? I'm not about to be in here with two grown men, you feel me, fighting over no bag. If y'all about to fight, y'all fight, you feel me? And that's when the person came, knocked on the door, was like, man, what y'all doing? Like, if you about to fight, fight. If not, you feel me?
Weren't you worried about taking the bag when clearly the enforcer of the heartless felons wanted that bag?
No, I wasn't worried about taking the bag because that's why I was there, for Weatherington not to get jumped and for nobody to take his food. So once I got that out the way and they got to fighting and I made sure nobody get jumped, that's the only reason I was even in there in the first place.
Make sure Weatherington didn't get hurt too bad.
Didn't get jumped by nobody.
And that he didn't lose his food.
And the rest of his belongings that he had didn't get taken.
Okay. So you take the bag, you leave, you put it in another cell.
Put it in the cell next to mine.
Then you come back.
Yes.
I want to spend some time talking about this. When you go back into that cell, describe for the jurors exactly what is going on, what you're seeing, what you're doing. I want to know in as much detail as possible.
When I walk back into the room, Ogletree is over top of Weatherington punching him.
And where are they at positioned in the cell?
They're on the floor. Weatherington's head is faced by the toilet.
So is that right at the door?
Not right at the door, no. Do you got the diagram? Yeah, so they're like right here. And his head is like faced towards like the toilet right here. So you see the doors right here. So when I walk in, I'm by the door, but yes, I'm by the door when I walk in, yes.
So you walk in, you're by the door, and you see that Ogletree Weatherington's on his back.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And Ogletree is over top of him.
Yes, sir.
Is Ogletree on his knees?
Yeah, he's on his knees.
And he's unloading lefts and rights on
And I push him back.
Weatherington's head.
Yeah, I push him back and tell him he's cool, like he's done.
So then you walk in, you see this, you're standing there, you see Ogletree on top of Weatherington, you realize what's going on, he's punching him in the head, you then go over and you push him off?
Like this, like he cool, like, stop the fight.
So you went right up to this heartless felon that's the enforcer, who's in the middle of this fight that everyone agreed was going to happen, and you pushed him off.
Like, not like an aggressive push, like he cool, like how, like if you watch UFC, if somebody's getting punched on and they come and they put in front of you, he cool.
Okay. And so I assume then once you kind of get in between, you're like, he's cool. Ogletree kind of backs up and gets off of him.
Yeah, he stands up, and that's when Weatherington gets to leaning up.
Okay. So Ogletree backs up, stands up somewhere back here. Is that right?
Yeah, he stands straight up.
Weatherington then is up and he's trying to lean against the bed.
No, he just, like, when I seen he's leaning up because at that moment, that's when Ogletree, like, low-key walks over him while he's getting up, like, walking out the door to leave.
Okay, and you said that you check on Weatherington.
I really couldn't really, like, thoroughly check on him because we out of place at this time. I just walked in the room. I just seen this. So when I walk out the room, when Ogletree walks out the room and I walk out the room, I'm about to turn back in there to go and check up on him and thoroughly check up on him. But that's when Ogletree shut the door.
But I'm not asking about thoroughly checking up on him. You asked him if he was all right at that time.
Yeah, at that moment, I asked him, was he cool when he was getting up? Yes, sir.
Okay, and so he's getting up, he's leaning against the bed, and he's saying that he's cool. You're like, are you cool? He's saying he's cool. At that time, Ogletree is trying to exit the cell.
Yeah, he's walking out the door.
And then after Ogletree exits the cell, you're looking at Weatherington, and then you exit the cell. Do you give him water or anything?
No, I didn't give him water until I came back because, like I told you, you get caught out of place, you feel me? You go to the hole. So I'm trying to get out the room, you feel me? And once I see, like, where the CO is at, that's when I turn back around. That's when you see me try to turn back around in the video, and he shut the door.
What injuries, if any, could you see on Weatherington at that time?
At that time, I just seen his mouth busted, for real.
For real?
Got dread, so I really didn't see no cuts or nothing on his head or nothing.
Was he fully clothed?
Yeah, he was clothed.
Ooh. Aw.
Where did you go after you left?
I was looking for Addison because the door shut, and I can't get the door popped because I'm not in that room. The only person that can get the door open is his cellmate. Okay. So I went and looked for his cellmate, like what you seen on the video, and I tell him, can he go and check up on my friend and make sure that he's cool because he just got beat up.
And Addison, after he does that, tells you what about Weatherington's condition?
He comes back and tell me, like, he told me, come get you, he bleeding on my bed. Like, he says the N-word, but he says, like, your friend is bleeding on my bed. Like, he told me to come
neighbor?
Okay, and so you go with Addison.
Yeah, I go back.
What's the condition of Weatherington at that point?
At that point, he's up on Addison's rack, like linked over. I'm asking him, is he cool? I give him some water.
Hold on 1 second. I want to make sure that I understand. When you say he's up on Addison's rack, that's the first bunk. He's sitting up, like his butt is on the bed?
His butt and his head is down.
His head is down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what's the conversation?
I just asked him, like, is you cool? He was shaking his head like, yeah. I'm like, do you need some water? He said, yeah. I gave him some water. And I was like, is you cool? I asked him again. He said, I just want to get on my rack.
Was he able to drink the water that you gave him?
Yeah, he sipped the water I gave him. It was in his cup.
So at that point, according to your testimony, he's up, he's drinking water, he's talking. Is that right?
Yes, he was cool at that point.
And then he asked for some help getting up on top of the bunk.
Yes, sir.
And so what do?
I sit there. I help him on his rack. Addison helped him get up on his rack. But before I left, he didn't have no cover or he wasn't laying down or nothing. He was sitting up on his rack, still with his head down. And he was telling me his head hurt.
Did you see, because you said that Addison was complaining that Weatherington was bleeding on his bunk. Did you see blood on Addison's sheets?
His sheets was blue at the time. I didn't really see, like, I was really focused on Weatherington for real. I really wasn't really even caring that he even cared about his blood on his rack for real. I didn't care about that at all.
But could you see the blood coming from Weatherington's head?
Nah, like his dreads is longer than mine. I just seen the cut for the first time like everybody today. I didn't even see like the blood coming from his head or anything at the time. I remember he telling me his head hurts though.
So you saw the photographs from the scene, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You saw that top bunk that had blood all over it.
Yes, sir.
And it's your testimony, though, that 15, 20, 30 minutes after this fight, he doesn't have all of that blood down the side of his face. There's not blood everywhere on Addison's bunk.
No, not that I seen. I didn't see blood all over his face. I seen his lips. You feel me? He was like this with his head down. So his dreads was just down. And I'm like, is you cool? Is you cool? And he was like, yeah, I'm cool. Give me some water.
But ultimately, I know he had his head down at first, but you saw him drink water and you helped him get up on the bed.
Yeah, I did not see nothing bleeding from his head, though.
So you think all of that blood that ended up on that top mattress, that must have just started bleeding sometime after You guys lifted him up onto that mattress.
No, but you got to think, he was in that room after that fight for 14 hours before they came and got him. So that's how all that blood got there, sir. That just didn't happen just right then and there, and all that blood just was out there like that. The COs failed them checks that they were talking about to make sure that no inmates is in the room. Them are called health and wellness checks. They got to do them every 30 minutes to make sure that we healthy and well. It's the CO's jobs to make
And
sure
we were
that
not
we're
healthy
alive. That's
and
their
slash
job,
or
is our
well.
safety. Not that it's more than one person in the room. So
He does have a point there.
when he was up on his rack, that's how all that blood got in there. He was in there for the whole night. I didn't even know why his bunkie didn't even report nothing to a CO. Like that, I would not. If I felt like it was something wrong with my cellmate, I would have said something. I wouldn't stay in the room all night with somebody that's bleeding like that at all, and then not report nothing the next morning. His bunkie didn't even report anything the next morning. It wasn't no cover on him before I left that room.
But you knew that he wasn't
even laying down at that point.
But I mean, you knew that he was injured. You could have reported to
Yeah,
the CO.
but
Not to that.
I did not know
level.
that he was injured to that point. And me, like I said, being a snitch in prison is the worst thing ever. I've been on J. John 2 years. I done seen somebody be considered a snitch, get stabbed, get 190 thrown on them, 190 hot water thrown on them. So at that point, am I thinking that my friend I didn't see no gashes on his head. I seen his lip bleeding. If I would have seen what I just seen today, I would rather be considered that and him still being here than me being here going through this and him not here.
So what was your level of concern about Weatherington's injury that night?
Well, after that night, after I seen him, he was telling me his head hurt. You know, I go back to my room. I'm just praying. I'm hoping that he's cool. And the next morning.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about, because you told the troopers that when they confronted you about your knowledge of the injuries, and you talked about the information you had, and you said, I stayed up all night praying for him.
Yeah, I did pray for him.
So his injuries were either bad enough that you stayed up all night praying for him because you were worried about his well-being, which you would think then, if that were the case, you would have alerted a CO to maybe go check on him, or you didn't think his injuries were that bad and you wouldn't have been praying for him, right?
No, I was praying for him because the whole time, like I told you from the beginning, sir, from when I entered the room and he was on his cellmate's bunk, all he kept saying was his head hurt. You feel me? My head hurt. I'm like, is you cool? He like, yeah, give me some water. Even when we put him on the top rack and he was sitting up, I'm like, is you cool? He said, yeah, my head just hurt. So, you know, in prison, I've been in prison for 5 years, sir. I done seen people, you feel me, getting into fights and stuff. So this is my friend. This is somebody I eat with, somebody I go play basketball with, I do culinary school with. So, of course, I'm praying for him all night. I don't really know that. I'm not in the room with him. I'm not in the room with him overnight. I'm not with him. So at the end of the day, yes, I was worried about him.
Why couldn't you have, because you talked about this before, one of the COs talked about it. I understand the concern about snitching, right?
Yes.
I think everybody understands that. But what the CO said and what you talked about earlier is you can make up any number of excuses to tell a CO to come into a cell and just do a check, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you were concerned about the injury, why didn't you tell Weatherington to make up some excuse to get a CO to come talk to him? Why didn't you do that? It didn't have to be, I just saw James Ogletree smash my friend in the head. You could have come up with any number of excuses, innocent excuses, right?
Sir, like I told you before, I'm not on that side of the range. So me coming up to a CO, and I'm not even on that side of the range. I was just out of place. I just seen a fight get taken. So me going up to a CO, making up anything, how would I be able to do that if I'm not on that side of the range and not even supposed to be over there? If anything, I was thinking if it was that bad, I'm thinking Addison would have alerted the CO that night or that morning.
So this is on Addison. He should have alerted the CO.
If that's your cellmate and you staying in the room with him overnight, you know him, you're in there with him for 14 hours. If you ain't say nothing that night, why ain't you say nothing that morning? This is your cellmate. I did not know that anything was wrong with him overnight. When the last time I seen him, like I told you, he was responsive, he was alive. So I'm not thinking that he's even about to pass away or nothing. That's not in my mindset. Why would I even think like that?
I don't know. You were praying for him all night.
So that's me thinking that he's about to pass away, that I'm praying for him. Yeah, my friend told me that his head hurts. I'm going to pray for him. I don't know the extent of his injuries. I didn't go in. I didn't see no gashes or nothing. He just was telling me his head hurt. I seen his lip was busted. You feel me? But I did not see nothing like too severe or anything like that for me. So, yes, I go back in my room and I pray for him for the night.
He pled
The
out.
next day, what knowledge do you get about his injuries?
When Addison first comes out, like you seen in the video, I'm asking him, when I see him, I'm like, is he cool? When he goes by the trash can, he tells me, like, I don't know if he's cool. So instead of me, like, being considered a snitch, I know he's the cellmate. So I know they're going to come to him. So my exact words to him, if they come to you, make sure you tell them to come get me. And I told the Highway State Patrol that as well.
So it's your testimony that even that morning, you didn't know how significant these injuries were.
No, he just told me that it wasn't like he don't know if he was cool or not. So I told him if they come and get him to try to talk to him, can you tell them to come get me? Because I didn't want to be considered a snitch if I go up to the CO and everybody can see me talking to the CO. So I told Addison, if they come and talk to you or come get you about a fight or anything, can you tell them to come and get me?
So when Mr. Hakeem testified, you heard him testify that morning you guys are doing laps at rec together, right?
I never did no laps with him.
Because he was trying to give you a little bit of grace. He was talking about the remorse that you expressed for being involved in that.
Yes, sir.
You're saying that didn't happen. You didn't express any remorse.
I never even see Addison and Hakeem is in the same gang. So when the stuff came up missing from the day before and Weatherington thought it was him that took the stuff, thought that Addison took the stuff, thought the GDs took the stuff. I never really talked to Hakeem ever. So for him to come up here and even say that, you never seen us on camera having no conversation.
So that was completely fabricated.
Yes,
That whole discussion that next morning.
I never. Do you guys got that footage?
Okay.
Mr. Knippen, how much longer?
Couple minutes. Sean.
What he said was in my.
Hang on.
So let me ask you this. Again, you said your main purpose, make sure he doesn't get jumped, hurt too bad, make sure his stuff doesn't get taken.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about
Judge
the
is
stuff.
like, wow, really?
The mesh bag that you removed from the cell, you never took it back. Is that
I never
right?
got it back from the room that I put it in that night because we locked down. And after I checked up on him and stuff, I wasn't worried about hurrying up, putting anything back. I was just trying to check on my friend, honestly.
So this bag that was so important that Mr. Weatherington was willing to fight over it, you were willing to grab it from a heartless felon, you never return it to the victim in this case.
Well, honestly, sir, they took all his commissary like I told you that day. What was in that mesh bag was some little
Keep
stuff
trying,
that he
Jim.
had left. So when they was in the room, like I told you, and he was like, y'all stole my stuff. Y'all didn't even take it. And he was like, I take this. It wasn't really even nothing in the bag at all, for real.
Well, you talked about in your interview with the Ohio State Highway Patrol that there was food in that bag.
Yeah, I just told you that. It wasn't nothing much in that bag, honestly. They took all, like his commissary, like his main commissary, they took it. It was some glasses in the bag. It was like a couple of soups left in the bag. So it really wasn't really
What kind of
nothing left
soup?
in that bag.
What did you do with the food?
I like I told you, I set it in my next door neighbor's door. Once I set it down in there, I walked back to the room. Once I walked back into the room and the fight and everything went on, after everything, I went back downstairs, looked for Addison. The bag and the food went out of my whole entire thing when I was just trying to make sure my friend was cool. Like the little stuff that was in the bag, I wasn't even thinking about it, like honestly.
Did you give the food to anybody?
No, I didn't give the food to anybody. Well, I dropped the bag off to the room next door, so I never got the bag back from the room next door, so they must have took the food.
Isn't it true that you told the trooper that you gave the food to Weatherington's roommate?
I don't remember that. I remember I gave Weatherington's roommate a soup from mine, but not from that bag, sir. That bag never even went in my room.
Well, we'll play a portion of a clip and we'll see if it refreshes your memory.
All right, I need to take a break. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break. I need to.
So much
this
for
has
2
been
minutes.
An hour and a half. So I'm going to send you back to the jury room and just take about a 10-minute break for right now, okay?
All rise.
Yeah, it's been 3 times as long as direct. 2.5 times as long as direct, and we're not even done. Yeah, Judge Teep has a big prostate.
Small for
Oh, Judge really does have to take a piss. He is in a teeny bladder. Prostate the size of a lemon. Oh, boy. He looks a lot more relieved.
All right, thank you. Please be seated. Sorry, Mr. Kevin, please continue.
So, Mr. Cummings, I was just asking you if you remember talking with Trooper Butler about what happened to the food items that were in the commissary bag of Mr. Weatherington. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember you asking me that question,
Okay,
sir.
I want to play this part and see if this refreshes your memory.
Yes, sir.
The food was taken out of the bag. Yeah, the food, because his son wanted something to smoke. I gave his son something to smoke.
To smoke?
Yeah, gave his son something to smoke.
So one thing that we were trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Does that refresh your memory about what happened to the food that was in the bag?
Yeah, you threw me off because you said what happened to the food in the bag. That's nothing about no food in no bag, sir.
I don't understand. What do you mean?
The same way I don't understand what you mean. That has nothing, what I just said has nothing to do with no food in no bag, sir.
What did that have to do with?
You just asked me, like you said before, you asked me a question about what happened to the food in the bag, and you just showed me a video about giving a celly something to smoke. Nothing was said about no food in the bag. Can you play the whole video back for the court so we can see everything that led up to that so we know what we're talking about?
I'm gonna pull it over.
Oh, he just got you. Well, I need to see his face.
Sure. No, you're fine.
I'm at
Led up to that so we know what we're talking about. The whole video back for the court so we can see everything that led up to that so we know what we're talking about.
Oh, the prosecutor. Oh, bitch.
He has to turn it up too.
Oh. Sure. No, you're fine.
I'm at full volume.
Just
Play enough of we understand the context.
Oh, this guy is clever.
From 17, 18.
No, I'll go back.
I wonder if she screwed up on the time and just made him look like an asshole.
Sir, if you can,
hang on, Mr. Cummings, I'm sorry.
So what did you miss? Prosecutor just showed the witness a 3-minute video, and the video apparently had nothing to do with the question he was asked.
it's a different time. Just go back.
So the defendant was just like, yeah, that didn't say anything about the bag or the food that you asked me about. And now the prosecutor is embarrassed and scrambling, trying to figure out what the hell he wanted to ask him. Yay, hell is coming.
That's fine.
onto it, but while your dude's in there getting ready to get worked over.
I mean, this is what I'm telling you, and this is all facts. All this is proof in the pudding.
Proof in the pudding.
I'm not in no nothing. If I would have took that bag, why didn't I take it back to my room?
That's a good question.
Thank you, because it's a felon in my room. And then I've been asking to get out because I want to get out the room with him. This is facts. Even our sergeant knows this. Been begging to get out the room with my son. That's why I didn't take it there, because I knew his stuff wasn't safe there. Why didn't, if Ogletree was in there working on him and it was a robbery or something like that, why didn't Ogletree come and get nothing? Why didn't he come and...
We don't know what all was taken out of the cell. Like, we know that there was a bag, but
That's
all of the stuff that you were saying that was in that bag was not in the bag when we found it.
The only thing that wasn't in the bag is the food.
So the food was taken out of the bag?
Yeah, the food, because his son wanted something to smoke. I gave his son something to smoke.
So what are we talking about there?
You just, the highway state, we're talking about the situation that happened, that we're talking about right now. And the highway state patrol asked me what happened to the bag. I told him that I moved it to the room next door, like I told you. And his cellmate came up to me and I gave him something to smoke.
He was asking specifically about the food in the bag, right?
And I told him in the video, like I've been telling you, that I put it in the room next door.
You specifically told the trooper that you gave it to the cellie.
I just told this trooper right now out of my own mouth that I gave his cellie something to smoke. I never gave him nothing out of the bag. I gave him something to smoke. I put the bag next door. I never even thought about the bag. I never thought about the bag once I put it back because I went to go and look for the inmate after that, his cellmate. I was worried about my friend. I was not worried about no bag, sir. I was not worried about no food whatsoever. So that slipped my head about the food. I was worried about Wetherington. That's it.
But is it your testimony that what we just watched, you were not telling the trooper that you gave the food out of that bag to the cellie?
No, I think we just all watched the video, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna watch it one more time just to make sure that I understand.
How far back am I going?
The same where we were at.
I can't see.
Pull it back to yours.
Yeah, it just takes a while. I'm sorry, it's my eyesight that's slowing this process down. 47:33, is it close enough?
Was that that?
We were 47:30.
That's fine.
I mean, this is what I'm telling you, and this is all facts. All this is proof in the pudding. I'm not interfering. I'm not in no nothing. If I would have took that bag, why didn't I take it back to my room?
That's a good question.
Thank you, because it's a felon in my room. And then I've been asking to get out because I want to get out the room with him. This is facts. Even our sergeant knows this. Been begging to get out the room with my son. That's why I didn't take it there, because I knew his stuff wasn't safe there. Why didn't, if Ogletree was in there working on him and it was a robbery or something like that, why didn't Ogletree come and get nothing? Why didn't he come and...
We don't know what all was taken out of the cell. Like, we know that there was a bag, but all of the stuff that you were saying that was in that bag was not in the bag when we found it.
The only thing that wasn't in the bag is the food.
So the food was taken out of the bag?
Yeah, the food, because his son wanted something to smoke. I gave his son something to smoke.
To smoke?
You said that the only thing that was taken out of that bag was the food because the cellie wanted something to smoke.
May you play that last part again, sir?
Sure.
This phone. We go.
No, that's
And sir, can you please remember that you told me in the courts this whole time that no bag was ever even found ever in my room or never even confiscated or found? The Highway State Patrol said that as well. But can you play that back, please?
We're gonna play it back.
Hey, photo
That's
truck
the only
just
reason.
showed up.
That's exactly what happened.
No, they didn't take his stuff.
Somebody
And
did.
they didn't jump him. I took his stuff.
Right.
That's
That's what I'm saying.
I took
I believe his
stuff out the
cellmate
cell,
was
sir,
a
like I've
heartless
been
felon.
telling you. And this was from what day? Everything. If you play the whole back for the beginning for everybody, the same thing that I stated today was the same thing that I stated on the 8th, sir.
Can you read the time stamp? It's not above Deputy Roadside.
47:52.
I want to get out the room with him. This is facts. Even our sergeant knows this. Been begging to get out the room with my son. That's why I didn't take it there, because I knew his stuff wasn't safe there. Why didn't, if Ogletree was in there working on him and it was a robbery or something like that, why didn't Ogletree come and get nothing? Why didn't he come and...
We don't know what all was taken out of the cell. Like, we know that there was a bag, but
That's
all of the stuff that you were saying that was in that bag was not in the bag when we found it.
The only thing that wasn't in the bag is the food.
So the food was taken out of the bag?
Yeah, the food, because his son wanted something to smoke. I gave his son something to smoke.
Gave his celly something to smoke. I never gave him no food at all. So we just watched the video 3 times. I never gave his celly no food. I gave his celly something to smoke, sir.
You're gonna stand by that?
That's what I just said there, and that's what was said right now.
Okay, no further questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and
That's how
gentlemen, if
you
you have
end.
any questions for Mr. Cummings, please reduce them to writing. Remember my instruction, do not discuss or display any proposed question with any other member of the jury.
You just bombed on cross if there was no redirect. The defense didn't have anything to redirect. Do they get smokes from commissary too? In Arizona, they do. I think every place is different, but some prisons allow smoking. I know Jodi Arias bitches about it a lot. She doesn't like all the smoke.
Ooh.
You know, I think he probably is involved somehow, but I don't see them proving
All
it.
right, Mr. Cummings, you've seen how this works. And I'm going to read the questions from the members of the jury, and you'll answer them, and then the attorneys might have some follow-up for you, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. What ultimately happened to the mesh bag?
Well, I put it in the room next door to mine, and after the fight and everything happened, I never really even thought about the mesh bag for months, because the next day I went to the hole, and I've been going through this for the last year. So probably the person that I put it in the room next door took the belongings in there when I set it in there.
You didn't alert the CO about the victim because you would get in trouble for being in that section?
I didn't alert the CO for 2 reasons. I would be in trouble for being out of place, and if I alert the CO, I would have been considered a snitch.
Why not join a gang yourself to get protection?
Because joining a gang in prison doesn't automatically protect you. That's really like the worst thing to me, is to be a gang. I've been to 3 different prisons since I've been down. Like, staying to yourself, I go to school. You can either turn prison into a university or you could turn it into being a gang member. I did not want to go to prison. I got locked up when I was 20. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to get a trade, which I did. I wanted to do something with myself. So being a gang was never in my mindset of me ever going to prison.
Is smoking something, a jail term for cooking something?
No, smoking is like they smoke tobacco, weed, everything that's on the outside.
Wait, did one of the members of the jury actually ask, is smoking this jail term? Is it something is it a black thing? How old is this juror? What is this smoking, this hip term you're using? You just know that's the whitest juror ever. I bet it's some lingo, it's some black lingo.
It's a gang thing.
Yeah. Oh.
Smoking dope.
World is in prison.
For cooking something? Is smoking something, a jail term for cooking something?
No, smoking is like they smoke tobacco, weed, everything that's on the outside world is in prison.
Do the other blocks in prison not have gang activity?
Certain blocks in prison, it's like they got honor dorms in prison. They got if you go to school, they got a working block, or if you work in the kitchen. So it's different blocks. So every block is not the same.
Is it normal for a gang member to agree to show up to fight with 2 non-gang members?
If a leader of a gang okays it, that's the only way it'd be cool. So if I got a problem with somebody and I'm not in the gang, but I go to the leader of the gang that runs the block, And I'm like, and it's not no big problem. Like, hey man, like, and I'm not into nothing. So a lot of people know that I'm in school and all that. So they know like Cummings not even a problem.
Teach a
So if somebody
class.
do something to him, there's no reason to jump me. So if I go to him and hey, I want to catch some work with somebody because they did this, and if he okays it, that's what it is.
What percentage of inmates actually get moved off of kite requests?
Since I've been there, it's hard to get moved off of a block. You literally gotta go through this to get moved.
How did you take belongings with no repercussion from either?
Welcome to
guy?
my TED Talk.
From either guy, I think I know what they're saying. They already took his main commissary earlier that day. The stuff that was in the bag that they was arguing, I was just really removing that bag out of, because they was sitting there arguing, because when he told them, y'all didn't even take my stuff, y'all stole it. And dude grabbed the bag like, I'll take this. So it really wasn't really even nothing. That's why the bag was even, it wasn't really nothing else left. They took his belongings earlier.
All right. Any questions based on the jury's questions?
No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to adjourn for the day.
Your Honor, can we have a brief
Recess?
sidebar?
Come on.
I think the family's starting to like him.
I'm sorry?
I think the family is starting to like him. He's very likable.
Okay. So no worries. I'm going to
Yes.
have you go back to the jury room. This shouldn't take very long, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Okay. So go back to. All right. You step down.
Thank you, sir.
Aw.
Yeah, we're on the record outside the presence of the jury. I take it, Mr. Oswald, that the defense is resting.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I show exhibits A through F.
Oh
Is there
yeah,
any
they
objection?
call a,
So you want to
a
read
brief
what was A
rebuttal.
through F?
A was the diagram of the cell. B, C, D, E, and F were all the kites from the defendant.
No objection, Your
All
Honor.
right, they will all be admitted at this time without objection. All right, and state wants to call Officer Creech.
Trooper Creech.
Very brief rebuttal.
All right, you don't have to stand just yet, unless you want to come up here. Yeah, that's fine. Come up here. And, okay, and then after the trooper, we're going to break for the day, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so just so that we're clear, I moved up Veterans Court, so I'm going to do, I've moved it up by an hour, so I should be done by 9:30 is what my plan is. So we should be able to get started about 9:30 tomorrow morning, okay? And you need 30 minutes each?
I mean, that'll
He
be
said
more than enough time.
45, Judge.
I said 20, 25.
That is what we'll say.
Well, you're going to take 10 and you're going to take 15, right? How much, now, have you guys gone through this yet?
This is so telling to me. The defense is like, yeah, I only need, 15, 20 minutes for closing. And the state is like, yeah, I need 45 minutes. So he was on cross for like 4 times longer than direct when he testified.
Yeah.
And now he needs
Yeah.
twice as long for closing.
It's not looking
he's-
good.
No.
I mean, you know?
No, we haven't, but it is a little tricky, as you know from doing the jury instructions. Complicity makes it harder to, it takes longer to explain as it relates to complicity and the felony murder and stuff, so, and it's a murder case, so we would
As
ask
a
for
murder
45 and
case.
hopefully be shorter than that.
Mr. Oswald, can you do it under 45?
I'll still be at 20, 25.
All right, that's fine. All right, does everybody have to use the bathroom or anything? Okay. All right, why don't you see if
Oh,
they're
the
ready?
confidence from both of them.
No, I'm going to tell him in front of the jury that he's still under oath.
Okay, so we have a brief rebuttal and then closing.
Thank you. Now arrested, and the state is calling Trooper Creech as a.
The video that was played. Trooper Creech, you just watched the portion of the video that was played for Mr. Cummings, correct?
That's correct.
And you participated in that interview as well, correct?
I did.
Is that your voice we're hearing?
That's actually Sergeant Lonnie Butler.
And he participated in the interview as well.
He did.
you're questioning, at the time, you're questioning Mr. Cummings about a commissary bag.
That's correct.
What commissary bag are you talking about?
About a commissary bag that we had found in Mr. Ogletree's cell.
So you believed that you had found a commissary bag.
That's correct.
Did you know at that time that Mr. Cummings had left 2J3 with a commissary bag?
I did.
And did you know at that time he had placed it in another cell?
I did.
And then you subsequently recovered a commissary bag from Ogletree's cell?
Yes, Trooper Clance did.
At the time, did you believe that the bag you had recovered was the bag Mr. Cummings had taken from Weatherington's cell?
At the time, we did.
And when Trooper Butler says to Mr. Cummings, what you're saying is in the bag was not in the bag we recovered, are you talking about it as if it is Weatherington's commissary bag?
We are.
Did you ultimately learn that that bag belonged to a different inmate?
We did.
Who did that bag belong to?
Mr. Clifford Johnson.
And who is Clifford Johnson?
Mr. Ogletree's cellmate.
But at the time, you did not have that information.
It did not.
But when Trooper Butler is there asking Mr. Cummings about the food in the bag, is he talking about Weatherington's bag?
He is.
And so the response that we heard Mr. Cummings give on the video is in relation to a conversation about the bag from Weatherington's cell.
Yes.
Do we have video from the chow hall or the rec
We do not.
area
We do not.
where some of these conversations might have occurred?
Do not have a video of that.
If I could have just one moment, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Any cross?
Briefly. So that bag you found in Ogletree's cell,
Yes, sir. Well, Trooper Clance found it, yes.
that was never submitted to BCI for any DNA analysis?
It was submitted, yes.
Okay. But we didn't get any reports back on that analysis?
I believe it came back to Mr. Johnson's DNA.
Okay. No further questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for Trooper Creech at this time, please do so in writing. Do not discuss or display any proposed question with other members of the jury.
Okay, so
Here, ready to go at 9:30. Say this. Did we? No, it was the people that just
all right, let me skip this, guys.
presenting the evidence. So at this time, we're going to move into the closing arguments of counsel. Ms. Nicholson is going to do the opening, closing for the state. Go ahead.
Yes, a lot less paperwork if you don't film all the
Ladies and
fights.
gentlemen, you've now heard all of the testimony and evidence in this case. Let's talk about what we know the facts to be from what you've heard during the course of this trial. 7:04 p.m. on December 6, 2023, Marquise Weatherington can be seen for the last time alive on surveillance video, peeking out from his cell, 2J3 at Lebanon Correctional Institution in Lebanon, Warren County, Ohio. Seconds later, the defendant, Anthony Cummings, followed shortly thereafter by James Ogletree. And they slide the door shut. At 7:11, Anthony Cummings looks out of cell 2J3. 11 seconds later, he looks out again, making sure they're not going to be interrupted. At 7:11, Shaquiz Akeem looks into cell 2J3, and he looks in again at 7:13. He told you that he saw Mr. Weatherington on his back, on the bottom bunk, with James Ogletree on top of him strangling him. And he told you that he saw the defendant throw a couple of punches, as well as stand at the door, shaking people off. There's nothing to see here. At 7:14, Anthony Cummings leaves with the victim's commissary bag. He takes it to a cell on the other side of the range, and then he returns at 7:17. We know that Mr. Wetherington's commissary bag is never recovered. Moments later, the defendant and James Ogletree leave cell 2J3, and they head on opposite directions. 40 minutes go by before Mr. Wetherington's cellmate, Jason Addison, returns. And he told you that he returned to the cell at that time because the defendant had approached him and told him that he needed to check on his cellie because we just beat his ass. And Jason Addison finds Mr. Wetherington face down on the cell floor, naked from the waist down, apparently unconscious, and his cell is a mess. He immediately gets out of there. He doesn't know what to do, and he isn't trying to be a part of it. But Mr. Addison is approached again by the defendant, trying to check on Mr. Wetherington. The defendant offers to pay Mr. Addison to clean up, which Mr. Addison doesn't want, but he agrees to help move Mr. Wetherington. So off they go to cell 2J3 at 8:12. Where the defendant tries to wake up Marquise Wetherington, which fails. And while they do get him up on the top bunk, Jason Addison tells you that Marquise Wetherington never came to, he never spoke, and he was never responsive. And while he didn't make much inquiry, Mr. Addison told you that he never knew Marquise to be responsive or move around again. Consider Mr. Addison's appearance as he leaves cell 2J3. Does that look like someone who just came from a cell where everything is fine? Lockdown's at 9, and while Addison attempts to alert a CO, corrections officers are not notified until 7:42 on the morning of December 7th, when CO Tyler Lay and CO Jimmy Potts find Marquise Wetherington unresponsive on the top bunk, which is covered in blood. And we know that Marquise Wetherington was pronounced deceased at 8 a.m. by Captain Corey Girdman. And we know that Mr. Wetherington suffered multiple blunt force injuries to his head, his neck, his chest, his abdomen, and his extremities. We know that Dr. Brown found evidence of strangulation, a fact that was corroborated by Shaquiz Akeem, by what he told you he saw occurring in cell 2J3. And we know the victim's DNA was found on both the defendant's sweatshirt and the thermal pants of James Ogletree, clothing matching what they were wearing in the surveillance video. As a result of those facts, Anthony Cummings is charged with 3 counts: felony murder, felonious assault, and aggravated robbery. In count 1 of the indictment, the defendant is charged with murder. Judge Teep is going to tell you that the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that on or about December 6, 2023, in Warren County, Ohio, the approximate result of committing felonious assault. But before you can render a verdict on count 1, you must first decide your verdict on count 2. Because remember, as we talked about in voir dire, the defendant is not charged with purposeful murder or premeditated murder, but felony murder, a death that resulted from the commission of a violent felony. So let's take a look at that violent felony. In count 2 of the indictment, the defendant is charged with felonious assault. And the judge will tell you that the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that on or about December 6, 2023, in Warren County, Ohio, the defendant knowingly caused serious physical harm to Marquise Wetherington, or was complicit in causing serious physical harm to Mr. Wetherington. As it relates to complicity, the judge is going to tell you that you must find the defendant knowingly solicited, aided or abetted, or conspired with another to commit the offense of felonious assault. So the question is whether the defendant aided or abetted his co-defendant James Ogletree in the commission of this offense. Remember the example from voir dire of the bank robbery. Not just the guy with the gun pointed at the bank teller's head is responsible for what happened. The state doesn't have to show that the defendant was the primary aggressor or the one that inflicted the most harm. Under complicity, you must find the defendant guilty of felonious assault if he aided or abetted Mr. Ogletree in the commission of that felonious assault. And so what does it mean to aid or abet? The judge is going to tell you it means to support, assist, encourage,
Oh my God.
cooperate with, advise, or incite another in committing the offense. And the defendant has to share the criminal intent of the principal, in this case, that is knowing.
That's rare.
The state does not have to prove that anyone acted with the specific intent to cause a felonious assault, only that it was done knowingly. A person acts knowingly regardless of purpose.
Why is she
When the
still
person is
talking?
aware that the person's conduct will probably cause a certain result or will probably be of a certain nature. Knowledge is determined from all of the facts and circumstances and evidence. And the judge will tell you that you can infer
She's almost done.
Have you such
that the
a bad
defendant shared his
influence? I've
co-defendant's
been
intent
calling people heifers and
from the
all sorts of
circumstances
things
surrounding the
lately.
offense, including but not limited to presence, companionship, and conduct before and after the offense was committed.
Wow, but I use
When
protection.
you were present and participating in the kind of assault that obviously occurred in this case, the defendant and Mr. Ogletree would certainly have been aware that the result of physical harm means any of the following. Any physical harm that carries a substantial risk of death. Any physical harm that involves some permanent incapacity, whether partial or total, or that involves some temporary substantial incapacity. And physical harm that involves acute pain of such duration as to result in substantial suffering or involves any degree of prolonged or intractable pain. And remember, this is just knowingly cause serious physical harm. We don't need to prove that the defendant intended to cause serious physical harm or that Mr. Ogletree intended to cause physical harm. Only that the defendant was aware that his actions or those of his co-defendant could result in serious physical harm. And it's important to remember that we are talking about knowingly committing a felonious assault. Knowingly resulting in serious physical harm, not the death of Mr. Wetherington. Ladies and gentlemen, you've seen the photographs of the victim's injuries. You heard the coroner list the victim's injuries. This wasn't a one-punch situation. This was not quick. This was a brutal attack. And there is no question that the defendant and Mr. Ogletree caused serious physical harm to the victim. And we don't have to show that the defendant was the primary aggressor or that he is the one that inflicted the most damage on Mr. Wetherington. Under complicity, you must find the defendant guilty of felonious assault if you find that he aided or abetted Mr. Ogletree in the commission of a felonious assault. And here's what the evidence shows. The defendant and James Ogletree go into cell 2J3 together. Shaquille Hakeem observed the defendant and James Ogletree assaulting Mr. Wetherington. Observed the defendant throwing punches, observed Mr. Ogletree choking the victim. When the defendant approaches Jason Addison and tells him to go check on his cellie, he tells him, we just beat his ass. We. Not he, not they, not some other guy. We.
Well, there was
He's in the cell
conflicting
for all but 2
testimony,
minutes and
sweetie.
16 seconds. This is a brutal assault. Blunt force trauma to nearly his entire body. And for those 2 minutes and 16 seconds that the defendant is not in cell 2J3, he's stealing the victim's property. Shaquille Hakeem told us that the defendant was a lookout. And the surveillance video confirms that. We can see the defendant stick his head out on at least 2 occasions, checking to make sure that they were not going to be interrupted and making sure that they were not going to be caught. No question that when looking at all of the evidence together, the defendant, Anthony Cummings, was complicit. He supported, he assisted, he encouraged, and he cooperated with James Ogletree in the commission of the felonious assault. You're not being asked to find the defendant guilty of complicity. Rather, you are being asked to consider whether he is guilty of a felonious assault with the assistance of the theory of complicity. The judge is going to tell you that a person who is complicit with another in the commission of a criminal offense is regarded as guilty as if he personally performed every act constituting the offense. And that is true even if he did not personally perform every act constituting the offense. If you find that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant was complicit in the commission of the felonious assault, then your verdict on count 2 must be guilty. So now we move on to felony murder, count 1.
Can you pause for a
If
second?
you find the defendant guilty of felonious assault, then really the only question left to decide is whether the harm suffered by the victim
Dolly,
as a result of that felonious assault
hello.
was the
Can
proximate
you
cause
pause
of
for a
his
second?
death. One way to look at felony murder.
Did they show footage of him looking out to check if there were guards around whilst this was happening?
I mean, he was outside, I think, and looked around.
And was that whilst this was happening?
I don't remember exactly.
Well, that's what
But,
she
I mean-
said.
Sal just ignores Hella. I mean, technically we ignore each other, but yeah.
Yeah, we generally do. He was thinking about Judge Fleischer. He misses him a lot.
I do.
He does. Well, maybe that's just not true. It's just the ones here. Depends, what you call men. Anyway, no, like, guys, I haven't seen everything. I've been asleep for some of it. Was there footage of Cum Dog looking out for the guards around the time that this assault was occurring? Because that's kind of important. She said that, right? I don't think Ogletree and Cummings go into the cell to argue for 10 minutes. There are better times and places to argue. They had a look at. Well, I mean, they have okay, so prisoners look out for guards for different reasons.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean that they're looking out for guards because they're about to bash somebody. There
Yeah.
could be all sorts of different reasons, right? What they want to know where the guards are coming. Yeah. But were they looking out for guards at that moment when he was about to get bashed or when he was getting bashed? That's important. Paul, yes, there was a lookout, and yes, they did look and peek out the door. Okay. So the question is whether it was then.
Yeah.
Whether they're using footage from a different time to sort of make him look like he's looking out, and then for that moment. Also, they tapped the door when a guard was near during the beating. Okay, so how do we know? There's no footage actually in the cell, right?
No.
So how do we know that that was him? Was that Cummings?
Yeah, because there was a few people there.
Yeah, we don't know if that was Cummings or not.
I'm not sure.
There was footage they played, but I didn't see what happened on it.
It was, poorly presented.
It was poorly presented or poorly watched?
Both.
Although I believe that it was poorly presented. I believe that. The footage was so poorly presented, most of its value was lost on me. Yeah. He was the guy on the cam. They all said and confirmed it was him who was on the cam. Doing what? Looking out? At what time, Paul?
I guess during the beating.
Like
Okay.
an equation. A felonious assault plus a death equals felony murder, as long as that death is out of the harm suffered in the felonious assault. In this case, there is no question that the victim ultimately succumbed to the injuries that he suffered at the hands of the defendant and James Ogletree on December 6th of 2023. You heard testimony from Dr. Brown, the coroner, that clearly established that. She testified that Mr. Weatherington suffered from multiple injuries to the head, multiple blunt force injuries to the head, neck, torso, and extremities, and showed significant signs of being strangled. And she told you that either of those, the blunt force trauma to his head or the strangulation, could have resulted in his death, but certainly the cumulative effect of those injuries resulted in the death of Marquise Weatherington. So if you find the defendant guilty of felonious assault, he's guilty of felony murder. Remember, this is not premeditated. It is not purposeful murder. The state is not required to prove any of that to you. And the state doesn't have to show that the defendant and Mr. Ogletree knowingly caused the victim's death, knowingly caused serious physical harm. All that we are required to prove for felony murder is that Marquise Wetherington died as a result of the injuries he suffered during the felonious assault. In count 3 of the indictment, the defendant is charged with aggravated robbery. Judge Cheap will tell you that the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that on or about December 6, 2023 in Warren County, Ohio, the defendant, while committing or attempting to commit a theft offense or fleeing immediately after committing a theft offense, inflicted or attempted to inflict serious physical harm on another. The evidence has already clearly established that Marquise Wetherington suffered serious physical harm. The only real question is, was a theft offense occurring? There is no evidence that Marquise Wetherington consented to his property being taken. Not a single witness or piece of evidence corroborated the defendant's claim that the victim was having problems with his property being stolen. In fact, it was just the opposite. No one was aware of such a fact.
We overlook it.
Instead, the evidence shows that on the evening of December 6th, the defendant took the victim's belongings, put them in a cell, and never returned them. Not when the fight was over, not when he goes back into the cell 55 minutes later.
Shut up, Mav.
And not the next morning. That's a theft offense. Ladies and gentlemen, the state has met its burden and proven all of the elements of all 3 counts of the indictment to you beyond a reasonable doubt. Based on all of the evidence presented, the state is asking that you hold Anthony Cummings responsible and accountable for his actions on December 6th of 2023 that resulted in the death of Marquise Wetherington, and that you return a verdict of guilty.
Why is she still talking?
Thank you, Ms. Nicholson. Mr. Oswald.
Thank you.
Boring.
That wasn't 45 minutes.
That was just the
Well,
first
hang
one.
on, she gets rebuttal.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm sure the man will handle the rebuttal.
Oh, the man will handle the rebuttal,
Yeah.
of course. Because, she might still have baby
Yeah.
brain.
Exactly.
Good morning,
Yeah.
ladies and
It's a
gentlemen.
man's job.
First, I do want to thank you for your jury service. I know Judge Cheap told you in his instructions how important the jury system is to us. And I truly believe that too, so I do thank you for your attention and patience. Now, the way this works, you heard the prosecutor speak first, then I get to speak, and then Mr. Knippen's going to come up and speak because they have the burden of proof, so they get to speak last. I have no doubt he's going to be taking notes on everything I say. He's going to come up here and rebut everything I say. But closing argument's important because this is the last chance I get to speak with you. When I look at this case, it's like buying a house. You go with a realtor, you see a 2-story house, 3-bath, 4-bedroom, a pool. Looks great. I'm going to buy it. Just like the state presents. They say, Cummings, Ogletree went in the cell, Wetherington's dead, must be guilty, right? But when you're buying a house, what's the next step? You get an inspection. And you usually learn a lot more about the house once you get the inspection. And when you do that, maybe you find some cracks in the foundation. Maybe you realize now you need a new roof, maybe a new deck, maybe a new furnace, maybe they have termites. And that's what the inspection is. So let's look a little closer at this case and the evidence they presented.
Get some deck sealant.
We know that Anthony Cummings is from Lorain County, and Trooper Creech confirmed that his out date was September 25th, 2025. And we know Cummings was not the game. We learned that Marquise Wetherington is also from Lorain County.
You deep brain.
And Cummings and Wetherington knew each other before prison. And Cummings actually stated he knew Wetherington's brother. And when they got to Lebanon, Wetherington and Cummings were on the block for about 8 months together. And they hung out together because they weren't in gangs.
Can we change
And you heard
the
Cummings
layout?
tell you
Like, why are we
the way it
still
works. Gang members hang out together. So if you're in Heartless Felons, you all hang out together. Gangster Disciples all together. Or if you're from a big city, Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, you would hang out with those people that you're familiar with. And he's a smaller county. He
Don't
hangs
they have
out
like
with the
gang socials where they all fraternize?
Now, we also learned about James Ogletree. And Trooper Creech and Cummings both confirmed that Ogletree is a Heartless Felon gang member.
Oh,
And he's also one of the enforcers in the Heartless Felons.
but he's got a heart of gold.
Trooper Creech confirmed that
Yeah,
Ogletree is in prison for
yeah.
involuntary manslaughter. So he's already killed one person before. And his out date is October 29th of 2043. So when this occurred in 2023, he still had 20 years left on his sentence he has to serve. Now, we heard about Jason Addiston. Again, Trooper Creech confirmed that Addiston was a gangster disciple, another gang member. And you heard a lot about Lebanon Correctional J Block. You heard Corrections Officer Lay, who's the bid officer, confirmed there's multiple gangs on J Block. You heard Cummings say the same thing. You heard Trooper Creech confirm the same thing. There's multiple gangs on J Block. And you heard that Cummings wanted out of J Block because of the fights, the gang activity, stolen commissions. And he read you the 5 kites, the 5 requests saying, get me out of J Block. And eventually he's finally moved, but he did screw up when he got an in-house infraction and they sent him back to J Block where he did not want to be. So let's look at December 6th, 2023 at LCI and J Block and let's see what happened. We know that Wetherington was getting his commissary stolen. And 2 days prior, we know that Addison joined Wetherington as a cellmate. And then on December 6th of 2023, Wetherington's commissary is stolen from his cell. At that point, Wetherington suspects the gangster disciples because Addison is a gangster disciple and his commissary wasn't stolen. So he assumes it's gangster disciples. We learned that in Chowline, Wetherington said, look, I want to fight someone, whoever stole my commissary or whatever gang it, I want to fight that person so we can squash this. That's when Cummings and Wetherington approached the gangster disciples table and they said, hey, did you steal my stuff? They say, no, the Heartless Felons did. We saw him do it. Okay. So Cummings and Wetherington then go over to the Heartless Felons table, ask them. Well, when they ask them, their response, they start laughing. And the Heartless Felons say, well, we can steal from you because you're not in a gang. So at that point, Wetherington says he wants to have a one-on-one fight with the Heartless Felon. So this stops. Because you heard from Cummings, if you don't stop it, you become food, was his term. Meaning they'll continue to steal from you, steal from you, steal from you until you stop it. And the way you stop it, you say, you give me one of yours, I want a one-on-one fight, so this will stop. And that's exactly what Wetherington wanted. You heard that a higher up in Heartless Felons approves a one-on-one fight, but Wetherington doesn't know who he's going to fight from the Heartless Felons at that point. So Cummings tells his cellmate, who is a Heartless Felon, just let it be a one-on-one fight. Don't jump Wetherington. Don't jump Wetherington, just let it be one-on-one. That's what he tells the cellmate.
I
So
want to
after
be
dinner,
a Heartless Felon.
Wetherington cleans out a cell because that's what you do if you know there's going to be a fight. And Wetherington asks Cummings to make sure he doesn't get jumped by the Heartless Felons. And that's when Ogletree asks Cummings if his cell is clean, and Cummings says, yes, it is. At that point, Wetherington still doesn't know who he's going to fight from the Heartless Felons. Then we take a look at the recording, and that's where it starts at 7:04. Cummings goes to Wetherington's cell, and you see Wetherington looking out the cell because he's wondering who he's going to fight. Cummings goes to his cell to make sure that Wetherington's not going to get jumped by the Heartless Felons. And that's when Ogletree immediately follows him into the cell.
Really will.
At that point, Cummings says, oh, that's who Wetherington's going to fight. I didn't realize that until Ogletree followed him in the cell. Why? Because Ogletree is the enforcer of the Heartless Felons, and that's who they fight, which is approved by the higher-up gang members. So Ogletree comes in, grabs the white commissary bag. Wetherington grabs it too. They start arguing about stealing, why you steal my stuff, you took everything. The last stuff in that bag is some soup and some glasses. And you heard Cummings say Ogletree was by the window, Cummings was in the middle, Wetherington was on their side. They're wrestling back and forth, arguing. And they continue to argue, and it's starting to get loud. And they're trying to work it out, but there's no punches thrown at that point. At 7:14, you see the Heartless Felon outside knock on the door. You see him run up, knock on the door. Why? Because Ogletree and Cummings are out of place. Meaning they're not supposed to be in that cell, and when you're out of place, and if you get caught, you have to go to the hole. So the Heartless Felon outside, knowing that there's going to be a one-on-one fight inside, says, hey, he hears the arguing, are you guys going to do this or not? That's when you see Cummings come out. He said everyone was distracted by the knock. That's when I wanted to take the last of what Wetherington had, so Ogletree wouldn't take it, and Wetherington let him take it to another cell, and he went to his neighbor's cell and put it in there. He did not put it in his own cell because his own cellmate is a Heartless Felon. And if he puts it there, the Heartless Felon's going to take it. So at 7:17,
So complicated.
Cummings returns to the cell, sees Ogletree on top of Wetherington, punching him multiple times with both hands in the head. And that's when he said he saw Wetherington on the ground, Ogletree on top, and he steps in and says, stop. He compared it to a UFC ref. When someone's just getting pummeled and the UFC ref stops the fight. And he said, stop, you got to stop.
How orderly.
And at that point, now he knows he has to leave because he's out of place. And he knows if he gets caught, he's going to the hole. So since he had to leave, he said he didn't have a chance to follow up and check on Wetherington. And he was concerned. So what does he do? He goes out and finds Addison and says, you need to check on what your cellmate. And why does he ask Addison? Because he can't report it to the guards. Cummings can't report it to the guards because then he's a snitch. And if you're a snitch, you're going to get harmed. And if you snitch on Ogletree, who's a heartless felon, guess who's coming after you next? The heartless felons, because you're a snitch. And Cummings said, well, I can't pop the door because they only pop the door, open the door for this person that is in the cell. So Addison's the only one that could pop the door. So then at 8:12, you saw that Cummings checks on Weatherington, and he told you he was sitting on his bed with his head down with the dreads. And at that point, Weatherington said his head hurt. Now, the state wants to argue he's unresponsive based on Addison, and I'll talk about him later. But the coroner says she could not estimate a time of death. She never estimates time of death. So she can't say, the coroner could not say that Weatherington was unresponsive in that cell 55 minutes later. There's no evidence of that. There's absolutely no evidence from the coroner because she couldn't estimate the time of death. She did the autopsy 2 days later. And Cummings said Addison was upset because there's some blood on his bunk, wanted to move him up. So Cummings gets Weatherington some water, and then him and Addison held Weatherington up to the top bunk. And that's where some of the blood from Weatherington gets on Cummings' sweatshirt, which you've seen, and it's confirmed by DNA. And Cummings said, I only saw a bloody lip. I did not see any head injuries at that time. Obviously, there's some blood on the bed, but he never saw any lacerations because Weatherington has dreads. And his dreads are longer or bigger than Cummings, and that's why he never saw anything.
Oh.
And then we learned Weatherington's. Now, getting back to the inspection, there are some cracks in this foundation. There are some cracks in this case with the state's theories. The state wants you to believe, in the opening statement they said it, that this was a brutal beating for 10 minutes by Ogletree and Cummings. Now, Trooper Creech confirmed that Cummings had no injuries on his body or hands.
Oh,
that's the picture that was taken shortly after.
Has
The Trooper Creech said, I observed no injuries on Cummings. It's also confirmed by the photo Cummings' hands. And again, Trooper Creech said, I did not see any injuries to his hands, which is inconsistent with a 10-minute brutal beating by both of them.
Inconsistent.
Trooper Creech also watched the recording that you saw inside J Block and said he could not see any blood on Cummings in the recording. And you can see Cummings walk out right towards the camera, walk down the other side of the range, walk all the way back, and he can't see any blood on him. There's no blood on him. No blood on his sweatshirt at that point or his pants. But what he did see, and he pointed it out and circled it to you, is when Ogletree leaves that cell, you can see his white thermals have blood stains on them. It's clear as day, and you can see that. Trooper Creech also said that he saw an injury to Ogletree's right hand, which is a fresh injury he took a picture of, which is consistent with Ogletree punching, hitting with closed fist on Weatherington, which Cummings stated he saw when he came back in the cell. Trooper Creech also confirmed with Ogletree's cellmate that when Ogletree returned to the cell, Ogletree was covered in blood. Well, if this was a brutal beating for 10 of them, why wasn't Cummings covered in blood? Why didn't he have blood on his pants, his shoes, his shirt at that point, anywhere else? Or why didn't he have any injuries on his knuckles? The reason is because Ogletree is the enforcer. His out date is 2043. He had 20 years left of his sentence. He doesn't care if he gets in another fight. He doesn't care about the consequences. He's got 20 years to serve. But Cummings' out date is 2025. He doesn't want to get involved. He said in those kites, those five kites, look, I've been doing well. I don't want to get involved with anything. Get me off J Block. I'm getting out soon. And he kept saying that. Now, another crack is Shaquem Akeem. And the state wants you to believe his testimony that he saw Cummings punch Weatherington and that Ogletree was on top of Weatherington at the bottom bunk choking him. The issue with Akeem is he writes this letter on May 2nd of 2025. And he states in the letter, having more than a hard time trying to remember the events that took place. My memory is failing me, as well as since then I've been in multiple physical altercations. I have a hard time remembering last week, let alone something that has nothing to do with me. Okay. He doesn't want to be a part of this case. He said, I'm out. I don't remember anything.
Oh, shit.
But then you heard the prosecutors and Trooper Creech met with him on August 13th of 2025. Suddenly, his testimony changes. And suddenly, his testimony fits the state's theory and incriminates Cummings. Now, he claimed there's no promises, but what incentive do inmates have to cooperate with the state or the prosecutor's office? Because we talked about jury selection. We talked about potential retribution. when those inmates get back to the prison and those prison inmates know that they just testified at trial against someone, they're going to be viewed as a snitch, as retribution. But what would trump that to get an inmate to change his testimony and cooperate with the state? Early release. So when I said what promises have made, maybe I didn't phrase it right to him. Maybe it was case consideration. Maybe it's a phone call.
Sustained.
Maybe it's some sort of help or promise that he can get early release.
Can we approach?
Sustained. Move on.
But this is also confirmed because Shaquem Hakeem claims he was walking in the yard with Cummings, and that's when Cummings made admissions to him of hitting Weatherington. And someone asked the question of the jury, are there any cameras in the rec yard or child hall? Trooper Creech said there's cameras everywhere. So Trooper Creech said Hakeem never said that in the initial interview. Never said that. So when Hakeem meets with the prosecutors on August 13th, if he were to tell him, yeah, I walked laps with Cummings, you know Trooper Creech would have pulled that video and you guys would have seen that video. You never saw that video because it doesn't exist. Cummings said, I barely know him. I don't talk to him. But why don't we see that video? Because it didn't exist. If it existed, I guarantee Trooper Creech would have pulled it and you would have seen it. Or did Hakeem just make it up on the stand during the trial? And he never told anyone. And then he came up with it on the stand, and that's why Trooper Creech never had an opportunity to even pull that video. I don't know. But his testimony is very inconsistent. Now we go to Jason Addison, and again, the state wants you to believe that he's truthful, and he said, we just beat Weatherington's ass. Now, the one interesting thing about Addison, he did mention at some point he noticed a shirt in the window of the door, which I think is interesting because if that's true, how does Hakeem see through the window of that door? And Cummings asked Addison to check on Weatherington. And Cummings said they beat his ass. He said they, referring to the heartless felons. He told you he did not say we. And I know the state's going to say, no, he said we. So is it they or we? Which one is it? Well, we know Addison called his girlfriend 3 different times between 7:17 p.m. and roughly 7:45 the next morning and told his girlfriend what happened. And she was telling him how to check a pulse. Why not hear those phone calls? Why not hear what he tells his girlfriend? Because that would answer the question whether he said we or they. But we never heard those because they don't help the state. Now, the state also wants you to believe that Cummings was acting complicitous. And the judge will tell you in jury instructions, the defendant knowingly, with respect to felony assault, or purposely with respect to the aggravated robbery, solicited, aided, or abetted, or conspired with another to commit the offenses of murder, felonious assault, and or aggravated robbery. But what he'll tell you is the same that I told you in jury selection. The mere presence of a defendant at the scene of the offense is not sufficient proof in and of itself that the defendant was an aider or abetter. Cummings was there to ensure that Weatherington wouldn't get jumped by the heartless felons. And we know from DNA there was some towel and rope in Weatherington's cell. Cummings' DNA was excluded from that, so he wasn't all over that cell. He merely wanted to ensure that Weatherington wouldn't get jumped by other heartless felons. And the coroner even confirmed that the injuries to Weatherington could have occurred from one person. And that was another jury question, and she said that all the injuries could have occurred from one person. The state's theory doesn't make sense that a gang member, a non-gang member, are going into the cell of another non-gang member who's friends with Cummings, they know each other, to beat him up and take, not even his commissary, because that was already stolen.
I think we get away with the Nancy crisis.
Some soup and glasses. It doesn't make sense under that theory. Cummings' testimony makes sense. When you hear everything going on between the gangs, Weatherington, the way it works in prison, where you do a one-on-one fight to stop it, and how he's trying to help his friend by not getting jumped.
It did not
And Cummings didn't waiver when
sense.
Mr. Knipp and cross-examined him for over an hour yesterday.
Wait.
And Cummings didn't waiver when Mr. Knipp and cross-examined him for over an hour yesterday.
He kind of threw how long he was on cross in his face.
And you know that Cummings was interviewed 2 different times. I believe one by Klotz, one by Butler. Klotz said it was roughly 27 minutes. The one you saw yesterday was 47 minutes. But those statements were never played for you.
Oh, he's
now,
got
rules of
the
evidence
times.
don't allow me to. But the state didn't play those for you. Why? Because they were consistent with what he said. What he said when he was consistent with what he testified on the stand. In this small clip they were playing about this bag, they originally thought was Weatherington's bag, turns out to be Clifford Johnson's bag, and it was found in Ogletree cell. I didn't really understand that, but they're trying to say he was inconsistent. Of all the questions and all the interviews he gave, that's a small snippet they pick up for you. I submit to you there are a lot of cracks in this case. Cummings did not cause any serious physical harm to Weatherington.
The only crime here is that
By
suit.
other heartless felons. The aggravated robbery is this mesh bag. Again, he removed the bag from Weatherington's cell so Ogletree or someone else wouldn't take it. He put it in his neighbor's cell. At that point, he doesn't know what happened to it because the next morning Weatherington's dead. But I ask you, why didn't we listen to Addison's phone calls to his girlfriend? Because that would have answered more of our questions of whether Addison's being truthful or not. Why didn't the inmate who knocked on the cell door get charged? Why didn't we hear from that inmate as to what he heard or not? Because if it was that loud with the arguing and he knocks on the door, why didn't we hear from that inmate testify? Why did Akeem change his testimony? Why didn't we see the cameras in the chow hall? Because it would have shown with Weatherington trying to talk gangster disciples, the heartless felons. Why didn't we see that video? Why didn't we see the cameras of the rec yard? Because if Shaquem is telling the truth, which is not means in Shaquem walking the rec yard, why didn't we see those? And why didn't we see Cummings' two interviews? Because he was consistent from 2023 to yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you this case has a lot of cracks in it. The prosecution has not proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm asking you that you find Cummings not guilty on all charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Mr. Kniffen?
Your Honor, is consistent with the other evidence that you know. So when you're back in the jury room and you're deliberating and you're talking about the different testimony, I'm going to ask you to view everything through that lens of, does this person have a motive to lie? And what could that be? And then two, is what that person's saying consistent with the other evidence in the case, be it the physical evidence, the medical evidence, the video evidence? So just remember that as you're back there deliberating, keep asking those two questions. Does the person have a motivation to lie? And is what this person's saying consistent with all of the other evidence that we know? Because at this point, we have two different sets of facts. We have one story that was provided by the defendant, Mr. Cummings, and we have a completely different story that was provided by Mr. Hakeem and Mr. Addison. So let's talk about the story first provided by the defendant. First, you have to remember that the defendant knows that everything that happens in the common area of the prison is going to be on video, but it doesn't capture what's occurring in the cell. So he knows when he's being questioned that he's going to be on video, entering the victim's cell with James Ogletree, the victim's cell, with the victim's commissary bag. He knows that he's going to be on video going back into the victim's cell while James Ogletree was still inside. And he knows that he's going to be on video leaving with James Ogletree right after this assault occurred. So he knows all of those things before he talks to the trooper. And so what do you have to do in that situation when you know that you're on video coming and going with the co-defendant, coming and going with the victim's commissary? What do you have to do? What kind of story do you have to come up with to match these facts? Well, it's pretty simple. You come up with a story that no one else is able to verify because the only other person who could verify the story is dead. The problem is that the story that the defendant offered doesn't make sense, and it's not consistent with the other evidence that we know in this case. First, he wants you to believe that Weatherington's commissary was constantly getting stolen, and that Weatherington was trying to tell people, but that nobody would do anything about it. And so finally, Weatherington had had enough.
Yes, I can believe that in prison, things are stolen from each other.
Oh, well, isn't that just so difficult to believe?
Oh, that's just so convenient.
Oh, well, there's not people who steal things in prison.
No.
No.
I mean, I think he probably was involved somehow, but he's done a shit job proving it. And
Who? Come dog?
Prosecutor. I think Cum Dog probably was involved in some way.
I actually don't.
maybe as a lookout.
But they were mates.
Hmm.
Like, they were actually friends. Like, him and the deceased were friends. They were in the same gang.
Well, no, Cummings wasn't in a gang.
He's not at all. Are you sure?
Yeah, they said he was not in a gang. He was kind of stayed to himself, or tried to.
Okay.
But
well, anyway, they were
regardless,
friends.
yeah. Regardless, the prosecutor is doing a shit job here.
Yeah. Hella thinks the guilty guy is innocent. I'm shocked. He's not, like, this dude actually isn't. I'm pretty sure he's not.
Well-
like, if he is guilty, he is a excellent actor. Right? He's very, very good.
Yes,
Like, he stood up so well on cross.
he did.
Like,
do very
so well.
Then again, the
under a
prosecutor
lot
did
of
so
pressure.
bad.
Pardon?
I thought the prosecutor was kind of lame, but
Yeah. So,
But he
and
held up, though.
Somebody else has already been done for this.
yes. Yeah, the other guy, so.
Yeah.
He needed to take matter in his own hands and fight somebody else to make this all stop.
Johnny.
But the problem with that story is that there is not one
Oh my
single
God.
piece of corroborating evidence to back that up. You heard from the person who's there every day. I asked him, did Mr. Wetherington ever make any complaints about his items getting stolen or him being harassed by other inmates? And he said no. I asked his cellmate, Jason Addison, was asked, were you aware of any times where Mr. Wetherington's stuff was getting stolen? And again, he said no. Mr. Hakeem said he was not aware of any complaints or problems that Mr. Wetherington was having. And there are no kites or communications from the prison that were offered as evidence to show that Mr. Wetherington was complaining to anyone in the prison, that he was having problems there in the J block. So there is absolutely no evidence in this case of the victim getting his items stolen or him being harassed other than the self-serving statement of the defendant. Rather, the only evidence that we have of the victim getting his stuff stolen, the defendant was walking out of the cell with his commissary bag. So let's talk about that. Because again, think what the defendant knows. He knows that he's going to be on video, leaving that cell while Ogletree is still in there, and while the victim is being assaulted, and that he's going to be walking away with that bag. So what story does he come up with to try to explain that to you guys? He claims that this fight that was supposed to occur because things kept getting stolen started happening in the cell because Ogletree immediately grabs Mr. Wetherington's commissary bag. And Mr. Cummings says, for almost 10 minutes, they're arguing back and forth and pulling on the bag back and forth until finally Mr. Cummings had had enough. And he's like, this is ridiculous. You guys keep fighting over this bag. I'm going to get it out of here so that you guys can focus on the fight.
Aww.
And so he snatches the bag. Because if you remember, he said we all three had a hold of the bag. We're all wrestling for it. He snatches that bag out of the victim's hand, out of the heartless felon's hand, and he goes out of the cell with it. And he leaves and places it into another cell. But you have to ask yourself, don't you think that he would have been fearful of incurring the wrath of the heartless felons if during this struggle over the bag, when he knows that the main enforcer of the heartless felons is trying to take this bag, if he snatches that bag out of his hands and walks out of the cell with it, don't you think if that were true, he would be nervous about what that means for him? He's so afraid of being identified as a snitch and getting on the wrong side of a gang. But in this instance, he showed the most courageous amount of bravery by snatching that bag and walking out, not caring if it would offend the heartless felons or not.
So brave.
And if this bag, this commissary bag, was so important to Wetherington that he was willing to fight and put his life on the line for it, and by extension, so important to the defendant that he was willing to snatch it out of everybody's hands and walk out of the cell with it, don't you think if it was that important? Let me ask you, do you remember what happened to that bag? Did he ever return to the victim's cell with that bag? Did he ever give it back to him? No. He either just leaves it in some random cell and never returns with it, or he gives some of the items in the bag to Jason Addison, as he stated in the video. Why would he do that if the bag was that important? Because think about this. What we've talked about is how valuable commissary is in the prison, right? That was one thing everybody agreed on. The CEOs talked about how valuable commissary is because it can be traded for everything. I believe that the defendant, in his own words, said that commissary in the prison is a form of currency. It's just like money. It can be traded for drugs, for smokes, for clothes, for anything. So think about that. If this bag of commissary is like currency, it would be just like the defendant taking a wad of the victim's cash, leaving it in some other cell, and then never returning to do anything with it. Does that make sense? It doesn't at all. And also, did anyone else pick up on the fact that Mr. Cummings would have you believe that just earlier that day, Mr. Wetherington's commissary was stolen? So at that point, he should have no commissary at all. Yet if you believe Mr. Cummings' story, as soon as Mr. Ogletree goes into that cell, there's a bag of commissary hanging up that Mr. Ogletree snatches right away. If his commissary had been stolen earlier in the day, why would that bag of commissary have been hanging up there? And the other thing that you have to ask yourself is, with respect to the bag of commissary, there was testimony that from Mr. Cummings that he wanted you to believe that Mr. Wetherington was supposed to go in there and clean his cell to make sure that nothing got out of place because this fight was going to happen. You heard Mr. Oswald talk about that. They were waiting to make sure that the cell was clean so that this fight could occur. Don't you think it would be odd, you believe what the defendant is saying, and he cleaned his cell, that when this fight is getting ready to happen, he would have hanging up his bag of commissary put in the shelf? Why would you have that hanging up there if you were supposed to be cleaning the cell, as the defendant would have you believe? Now, what else does the defendant want you to believe that we know is contradicted by the other evidence? He wants you to believe that at 8:12 p.m., 55 minutes after this assault, that he and Addison go into the cell and that the victim is sitting up on the bottom bunk and that Mr. Cummings gives him water and he's drinking water and he's talking and he's having a conversation. He also wants you to believe that he didn't really see any bleeding that was going on at that time. Cummings' statements, though, are not consistent with the physical evidence, with the medical evidence, or the eyewitness testimony. Let's first talk about the eyewitness testimony. We have Mr. Addison, who told you that the victim was knocked out, lying on the floor with no pants on. Mr. Addison says that the victim was not talking and that Mr. Cummings put the victim's pants on him and then they had to lift his body up onto that top bunk. Addison further stated that during that entire time, the victim was unresponsive. We also know that Mr. Cummings' statements about the victim's condition is inconsistent with what we know about the physical evidence at the scene. If you remember, he says, I didn't see the victim really bleeding at all. But we know at that time that the victim was losing a significant amount of blood. You could see it all over James Ogletree's pants, so he was actively bleeding at the time of the assault. We know that it was all over his sweatshirt, so he was actively bleeding at the time that it got all over Mr. Cummings' sweatshirt. So for the defendant to say when he went into that cell 55 minutes later that he didn't really see any blood, that defies the common sense that you know about the physical evidence. Because you saw the scene photos that next morning. You saw all of that blood.
We saw wet blood the next morning.
He was actively bleeding during and after this attack. Yet somehow the defendant would have you believe that while he was in there with Addison and they were tending to him, that he magically stops bleeding for that couple-minute period.
It was wet blood. So he was still bleeding when they found him the next morning. Which tells me there may not have been all that much blood at first when it first happened. I mean, maybe some blood, but not like what there was the next day.
Yeah, so there would have been more blood after he'd bled out all night.
Yeah.
Right? So there would have been a lot of blood by then.
Yeah.
I think there would have been some blood coming out of him when they were lifting him up onto the bunk.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, because he would have been starting to bleed then, but not
if
as
his
much
dreads
as
were
in the morning.
covering it.
If his dreads were, dreads soak up a fair bit, you would think.
So that's what they were saying.
Yeah, very little blood on the ground, tons on the bed. You're actually right, Matt. There wasn't that much on the ground. Like, there was only like droplets on the ground. I would have thought there would be more on the ground.
That's true.
But there wasn't very much. You're right. So for Cummings to not have very much on him kind of makes sense if he was just there for the putting him up on the bunk thing. The bed was soaked, but yeah.
Well, they put him on the top bunk. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, the medical evidence refutes the defendant's statement about the victim's condition in that cell 55 minutes after the attack. You heard from the coroner, and you saw all of the injuries that Mr. Wetherington sustained, and multiple blunt force injuries to include blunt force trauma to the head, bruising to the face, neck, lips, and scalp, abrasions to the forehead, lacerations to the scalp, internal bleeding around the brain, contusions to the chest and the abdomen, bruising to the right forearm and thighs, abrasions to the right arm, right knee, and right leg, as well as signs of strangulation, including petechiae to both eyes, bruising around the neck, and even bruising so severe that it went to the internal soft tissue. Think about those injuries. Think about those autopsy photos that you saw of the injuries. Do you think that the victim would have been sitting up, having a conversation with Mr. Cummings, drinking water? That defies all logic and common sense, ladies and gentlemen. So we know that the defendant is not being truthful about the condition of the victim because it's not supported by the physical evidence, it's contradicted by the medical evidence, and it's contradicted by the eyewitness testimony. The other thing I want to point out with all of these injuries is the time frame in which they happened. The defendant and Ogletree went into the cell at 7:04 and 39 seconds, and the defendant exits with the victim's commissary at 7:14 and 53 seconds. So for just over 10 minutes, the two of them were in that cell together before the defendant stole the victim's belongings. And according to the defendant, during that entire time, there were no punches thrown, no strangulation at all. There was just some tussling back and forth over the bag. So if you believe the defendant, all of those injuries that you heard the coroner go through, all of those injuries would have occurred during the time of 7:14 and 53 seconds when the defendant exited with the victim's stuff, and 7:17 and 10 seconds when the victim returned to that cell for 9 seconds. So for 2 minutes and 17 seconds, he would have you believe that Ogletree inflicted all of those injuries. Not only is that not plausible, ladies and gentlemen, it's not consistent with the other facts that we know. You heard from inmate Hakeem, who testified when he looked into that cell, he saw Ogletree on top of Wetherington choking the victim, and the defendant was punching him. And Hakeem's statement is consistent with the medical evidence, it's consistent with the injuries the victim sustained, and it logically makes the most sense. Do you want to know how you can believe Mr. Hakeem's testimony? The easiest way to know the evidence to show that the victim was being strangled or choked at some point during this incident. So in order for you to disbelieve Mr. Hakeem or to think that he was just making this whole thing up, you would have to believe that he just had a lucky guess that ultimately the medical evidence and the injuries that the victim sustained would match exactly with what he saw occurring in the cell that day.
Is Hakeem the one who said, I really, really don't want to be on the witness list?
So you don't just have to take Mr. Hakeem's word for it. We have the medical evidence that supports his testimony, but we also have the video evidence that supports it.
Yeah, I think so.
The video on 2 different occasions, as Ms. Nicholson showed you in her first close, shows him looking directly into that cell. And if you remember, Mr. Hakeem didn't go looking for OSP so that he could snitch on Mr. Cummings. It was OSP. It was the state troopers who, after reviewing that video and saw him standing there looking directly into that cell, wanted to talk to him about what he saw. Now, the defense wants to make a big deal about the fact that he wanted to review his testimony or review his statement to the Ohio Patrol before testifying. But think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Is that really so odd? You have somebody that's trying to remember events that occurred 2 years prior. Think about that. He's trying to remember events that occurred 2 years prior. You know he's going to be coming into a courtroom and testifying and being questioned by defense counsel. Don't you think anybody in that same situation would want to see their prior statement to remember exactly what they told the police? That's not odd at all. That happens all the time. The other thing that you have to remember, and this goes back to one of the crucial questions in this case, is who has the motivation to lie? Ask yourself, what would Mr. Hakeem's motivation be to lie? He had no beef with Mr. Cummings. He had no beef with Mr. Ogletree. In fact, you saw how much it pained him to come in here and take that witness stand and testify about what he saw.
He begged.
And he even wanted you to know how remorseful the defendant was that next day when they were talking and they were walking around the track. He wanted you to know, he specifically wanted to make sure that you knew he felt bad about what he had done. So when you're thinking about motivation and who has a motivation to lie, why would he come in here when he clearly didn't want to be here and testify the way he did against somebody who he considered a friend in prison just to make up false statements against him, but then go on to try to make you understand that he was very remorseful, that the defendant was very remorseful about what occurred. Does that make any sense at all? Of course it doesn't. Now ask yourself, what would the defendant's motive be when he testified? Does he have a reason to make up a story when he knows that he would be getting out in September of this year, in about a month? He's found to be not responsible.
Hello.
Yeah.
And there's been this
Pause
argument that
for a second.
Yeah.
I don't know why you don't listen to me. Okay, this prosecutor, it's like all his witnesses are goddamn prisoners, right? So he decides to pick and choose which one of them is truthful, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, you should believe that one. Why is this one more credible than that one? Well, this one's more likely to tell the truth because A, B, and C. Whereas this one's more likely to tell a lie because A, B, and C. Right? It's like, well, fuck. You can make up any reason why a prisoner is likely to be a liar. They're prisoners.
Yeah.
Hello? Which one has more of a motivation to lie? They're fucking prisoners. Like, when it comes down to it, they don't trust the government. Of course they don't trust the government. The government fucks them over every day.
Yeah.
Yeah? And when it comes, like, the guy that he's saying is so truthful, he wrote a letter saying, please, 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 don't put me on the witness list, please, please. And by the way, please, I really don't want to be on the witness list. And I've been in physical altercations, and I really don't want to be on the witness list. So he'd already been roughed up.
Yeah.
Right? So he'll say whatever the fuck. Anything. Like, there's no, like, he will say anything. Anything. And so, and then the prosecutor is saying, oh, well, who else has got, like, a motivation to, like, well, the defendant, obviously, because he wants to get out of this, right? Or he could be telling the truth.
Yeah. They never consider that little angle.
They never consider that possibility, that it's possible he could be telling the truth, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's possible you could just be trying to put as many people as you can away for as long as possible because you can.
Yeah, because that's your job.
Because that's your job, motherfucker. Sorry. This shits me off.
What he wanted to do was to keep his nose clean, and that he would never engage in something like this because he was a short timer and he was going to be getting out after a little while. But we know that that argument is false because of what happened with the kites. He kited and kited and kited, wanting to get out of J-Block. Wanted to try to stay clean. He said he hadn't been getting any tickets. And what happened when he finally got his wish after 5 kites and weeks of trying to get off J-Block? You would think, based on the defense theory, he would have gotten no trouble and been perfectly happy in G-Block for the rest of his time. It took him less than 1 week before he got in trouble and written up and sent back to J-Block. Now, Mr. Hakim's testimony is further supported by the testimony of Jason Addison. You could also tell that Mr. Addison didn't want to be here. I think you saw the long pause when Ms. Nicholson asked him to identify the defendant, Mr. Cummings, in court. There was a long pause where he didn't say anything. He knows that it does not go well for inmates in prison to testify in court against another inmate. He knows exactly what those risks are. He looked scared when he was testifying, but he told you the truth. And he told you that the defendant came up to him and said, "We just beat your Sally's ass." And I know Mr. Oswald.
So
wants to
you
say,
willingly
"I think
put
he's
him
just
into harm's
confused."
way.
He misunderstood, and it was actually they.
Aren't you a peach?
But you saw his testimony. He was sure. He was clear. He said that Mr. Cummings said, "We just beat your Sally's ass. You need to go check on it." And Mr. Addison's testimony is also directly at odds with the defendant's testimony as it relates to the way that the victim was found after the assault. Addison says that the victim was unconscious with no pants on. but the defendant adamantly denies that that happened. So one of them is not telling the truth. So again, look at who has something to gain by not telling the truth. Addison didn't know the defendant, he didn't know James Ogletree, and he had only been roomed with Mr. Wetherington for 2 days. He has no dog in this fight whatsoever. So what would cause him to come in here and completely make up this story about what the defendant did and what the defendant said? He has absolutely nothing to gain and everything to lose by coming in here. We've all talked about what happens to snitches. So why would somebody come in here and snitch about something that they're lying about when they don't really know any of the people involved and put themselves at that risk? Why would that make sense at all? Mr. Addison had no motivation to lie. But again, did Mr. Cummings? So again, this case comes down to who are you going to believe? The defendant's self-serving story that only the deceased victim could verify, or the testimony of Mr. Hakeem and Mr. Addison, who have no reason to lie, and whose statements are supported by the physical, the medical, and the video evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, if you believe Mr. Addison's testimony, then you believe that the defendant was not telling the truth. And if you believe Mr. Hakeem's testimony, then you also believe that the defendant was not telling the truth. How much time do I have, Your Honor?
I'm not keeping track.
What's that?
I'm not keeping track.
Okay.
Oh, thank
The
God.
last thing I would point out to you, if you're trying to assess the credibility of the defendant's story, is that the defendant would have you believe that a random inmate, the one who called out to CO Tyler Lay to go check on Wetherington and get him help, showed more passion, showed more courage, and showed more bravery for Mr. Wetherington than this defendant, who was apparently his good friend. Because that guy wasn't afraid to get Wetherington help. That guy wasn't afraid to do the right thing and draw attention to the victim who was clearly injured. Because to believe the defendant's story, you would believe that he sat up all night and prayed for the victim's health, but that he never alerted anybody or told a CO. And even the next morning, when Addison told him that the victim wasn't moving, he still chose to do nothing. If you had really thought that you had done nothing wrong, doesn't there come a point in time when you try to save your friend's life, regardless of what those consequences would be? Apparently not for the defendant. The difference between the inmate who called out to get the victim help and the defendant is that the inmate who called out for help knew that he had done nothing wrong and had nothing to hide. The defendant, on the other hand, knew exactly what he did, what the consequences would be, and chose to remain silent. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no question that the defendant, along with his co-defendant, went into this cell, they attacked the victim, they stole his items, and they left him beaten and broken on the concrete floor. Ms. Nicholson instructed you on all of the elements that the state is required to prove in order for you to find the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. You've also heard the explanation of complicity, and that the defendant can be found guilty of all of these offenses if you find that he aided or abetted in the commission of these offenses. Ladies and gentlemen, at the very least, the video evidence irrefutably shows that Mr. Cummings was acting as a lookout in this case. You saw the clips from Ms. Nicholson. After the one inmate knocks on the door, he pokes his head out 2 different times and is assessing what's going out on the range before going back into the cell. And as we discussed in voir dire with the bank robbery example, under complicity law, the lookout is just as responsible as the principal offender. So even if you don't believe that Mr. Cummings threw any punches, he is still guilty of being complicit as the lookout. And we know without any doubt that he committed the offense of aggravated robbery because he's captured entirely on video taking Mr. Wetherington's items, which he admittedly did not return, while Mr. Wetherington was being assaulted. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be fooled by the defendant's story. It is not consistent with the physical evidence. It is not consistent with the medical evidence. It is not consistent with the eyewitness testimony, and it defies reason and common sense. Rather, it is a desperate attempt to explain away that which you have all seen with your own eyes through the prison video. The defendant would have you believe that his purpose for being in the cell that day was to make sure that the victim didn't get jumped or get hurt too badly, and to make sure that his stuff didn't get stolen. At the end of the day, the victim ultimately died as a result of his injuries, and his property was taken from him. Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant and his co-defendant, James Ogletree, went into the cell and attacked the victim and stole his belongings. It's now time for Anthony Cummings to face justice and to be held accountable for his actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knicker. Members of the jury, you have heard the evidence and the arguments of counsel, and it is now my duty to instruct you on the law. The court and the jury have separate functions. You decide the disputed facts, and the court provides you with the instructions of law. It is your sworn duty to accept these instructions and apply the law as I give it to you. You are not permitted to change the law or to apply your own idea of what you think the law is or ought to be. The case before you began with the filing of an indictment. The indictment informs the defendant that he has been charged with a crime. You may not consider the fact that it was filed for any purpose. A plea of not guilty is a denial of the charge in determining
this,
or that is an essential element. The court has to express your opinion. It is placed by law. Have
so I want to
indicated
get
they
to
are
the
able to
jury
proceed
questions.
free.
Separate instruction.
Just make
Delivered,
sure.
and you can start your deliberations while you're waiting on your lunch. Okay, so we'll do that first. Is order your lunch, then you can pick the foreperson and keep moving. So at this time, Mr. Lawson is going to lead you into the jury room to begin your deliberations. And
Separate instruction or just give them one?
I'll just give
Just give them one? Okay.
the jury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Everybody does it a little bit differently.
If it's a really complicated case, I may print them off and let them read along.
Okay.
This was please.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah.
So I think this is the first question.
We're still on the record outside the presence of the jury. Mr. Knippen, is there anything else, sir?
There you are.
Mr. Oswald.
There you are.
All right, are you leaving the building?
I may go out to my car, that's it.
Okay.
But Justin has my cell phone.
Okay, Aldous.
Thank you all.
To move his car to the tollway zone.
I got to go feed the meter.
All right, this is State of Ohio versus Anthony Cummings. We are outside the presence of the jury on the record. Mr. Cummings is not in the courtroom, and we will decide whether you want to waive his presence. We've received a written question from the jury.
So this gets
The
interesting,
question
guys.
is, if Cummings helped arrange the fight on behalf of Wetherington, would that constitute complicity in the assault? I have what I want to respond to, Mr. Knippen.
My initial thought is you guys just refer them back to aided and abetted.
Aiding and abetting?
What that language is my initial thought.
Betted?
Yeah. Is it possible? I mean, because they're talking about the victim here.
No, they're talking about complicity.
I understand, but they're
He's saying if Cummings arranged the fight for Wetherington.
on behalf of Wetherington.
Right. So I'm guessing they're honing in on the part where Cummings was talking to a cellmate who's a heartless felon.
He doesn't know.
Stupid jurors.
Okay, hard questions. What's a chair react?
You guys both agree that I can't give them an answer yes or no to this.
I agree. I would agree with that.
What? He doesn't know.
All right, so
No,
the
you
response is
just
please
can't.
refer to the written jury instructions under complicity on pages 9 and 10. Mr. Oswald,
I'm fine with that.
thank you.
Typically, you have to just refer them back to the instructions.
No, just into the jury? Yeah.
Okay. So now he comes back with another question.
All right, we are, again, a few minutes later, back on the record, again, outside the presence of the jury and the defendant. Got a second question. If we find guilty on count 2, is it necessary to find guilty of count 1 because Wetherington died?
I think it's the same thing. I don't think you can. The real answer is yes.
Awkward.
You can't say that.
The real answer is yes. That is interesting.
Dude, you're on the record. Like, the real answer is yes. Oh.
Well, yeah, I mean, technically that's how the jury instruction is written, but it's up to the jury to interpret the instructions. So you can't tell them that's the case.
Okay.
So right now it's like it sounds like they're split. No on the murder and yet guilty on the theft.
that he was involved.
Yeah.
Right.
But then they're asking, well, but if we do it that way, then if he's guilty of this theft, does that automatically mean he has to be guilty of the murder? Because I'm guessing one of the jurors read the instructions and that's how they correctly interpreted it.
Mm. But they don't have to find him guilty. Like, they can do what they want.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the jury is very confused.
That's fair.
If he's guilty of the assault, he really has to be guilty of the murder. Because it's felony murder. And so he would the theft of the belongings was a felony. So a murder happened in the commission of another felony.
Yes, but couldn't somebody else be guilty of the murder and he just assaulted him?
But then he would have stolen the bag.
Yeah.
During the murder.
Yeah.
So
I suppose
technically,
we can't prove it. Yeah.
Yeah.
This all sounds
I'm
doubtful.
going to refer back to the jury instructions and indicate that they are the trier of facts. They're the ones that they have to make this determination, not me.
Yeah, so far.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Oh, he's so depressed.
He's having. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, no, you
Can you say I explained it well?
Yeah, he's happy.
This is that.
Where is the defendant?
I'm
the
going to
jail.
quote directly from the jury instructions. You are the judges of the facts, the credibility of the witnesses, and the weight of the evidence. You must decide.
Defendant is going to be out in 6 days. If
That's what
found
I'm going
not
to say. I'm going to
guilty.
say that they are the sole trier of facts. You must decide from all the direct and circumstantial evidence taken together whether the state has proven all of the elements of each count beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, I'm literally quoting directly from the jury instructions, but without giving them any specific direction.
They're saving all this for a surprise.
Body language is interesting.
We had this happen before with a felony murder case where they.
John Arnold and there was somebody else where they came back guilty on felonious, but not the murder.
Yeah. And I have my suspicions, but I know on that one there was one juror that was simply not going to budge.
Split jury.
But I think that this is what my answer. You are the judges of the facts, the credibility of the witnesses, and the weight of the evidence. It is your duty to decide from all the evidence taken together whether the state has proven all of the elements beyond a reasonable doubt. Any objection?
No.
Will? No. All right. Nothing like trying to give a cryptic response to an answer to a question. All right, let's go through it.
It's not cryptic, it's a fact.
Here's the $1 million.
Like, that's their
Sir,
job.
you guys ready?
So I think this is the verdict.
Yep.
Oh, no.
Case number 25CR42589, the state of Ohio versus Jacob Trent. Mr. Trent is before the court with his counsel, Mr. Davis, Mr. Harris, on behalf of the state of Ohio. Court services. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Everything that I have, like any warrants I have,
I would agree with that.
so, and you.
Sorry, guys. Left some of the miscellaneous hearings in by accident. Well, not accident, laziness.
Laziness.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to cut out too much by accident. And
Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Tiggs, I see you're holding the verdict forms. Are you the foreperson of the jury, sir?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me, has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, we have.
Would you please hand the verdict forms to Mr. Logston?
not intentional.
Mr. Cummings, would you please rise for me, please, sir? In the matter of the state of Ohio versus Anthony Cummings, verdict form as to count 1 reads as follows. We, the jury, being duly impaneled, sworn or affirm, find the defendant, Anthony Cummings, not guilty of murder as he stands charged in the indictment. This verdict form is signed by all 12 members of the jury. As to count 2, we, the jury, being duly impaneled, sworn or affirm, find the defendant, Anthony Cummings, not guilty of felonious assault as he stands charged in the indictment. This verdict form is signed by all 12 members of the jury. As to count 3, we, the jury, being duly impaneled, sworn or affirm, find the defendant, Anthony Cummings, not guilty of aggravated robbery as he stands charged in the indictment. This verdict form is signed by all 12 members of the jury. You may sit. Does the state wish to have the jury polled?
No, Your Honor.
Does the defense wish to have the jury polled?
No, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, that concludes your service.
Nobody is ever guilty in Warren County.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
They were, wow. It really
My
looked
guess
like
is they were
gonna go
so-
guilty, at least on the felon,
Yeah.
on the, sorry, I can't even get my words out.
Yeah.
How did they get unanimous?
Yeah, I was watching this. Scott was there. We watched him testify in the verdict, and on my courtroom roulette, and like we were all just stunned.
I just don't get how you get to unanimous. Like, you'd be like hung, fair enough, but
Yeah,
how did it get unanimous? Wow.
I was shocked. I thought it was going to be not guilty on murder, but 1 on the assault.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because then they came back just not guilty on all. Then that shocked me, because I assumed it would be a split verdict at that point. Like, you couldn't compromise, so you just, or you couldn't, decide one way or the other. So you just, but
Yeah, like the judge said, maybe there's one that won't budge. If there's one that won't budge, then you got a hung jury.
they wanted to go home. Yeah, I mean, this came in around 3 their time.
That means that most of them were not guilty, and someone went,
Yeah,
fine,
hold out.
fuck yes, all right.
I mean, some of the questions made me think that at least some of the jury was not sympathetic towards the state. But so what happened to the other guy who did it? He took a plea deal, so he's away for quite a while.
Nick, hi. Not usually iffy or probably is guilty in every other trial we ever watch.
Well, yes.
That's how it should be. Iffy or probably it should be not guilty. Wow, these jurors are based.
Yeah. I have seen a couple guilty, but in this county, but a lot of them have been not guilty.
This is how it's
One-
supposed to work. Exactly.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And this is not wrong. Like, this is the fact. This is the deal. Even if you think he might be guilty, that's not enough. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. There's too much doubt. Yeah, and sorry, but it's just the way that it works. If he might have done it, it's not a 50-50 plus. This is not a civil trial, right? This is not the balance of probabilities. It's not 75% either. It's not clear and convincing evidence. It is beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the highest standard in the land. And if people think he might be guilty, that's just not enough. There needs to be no other convincing reason other than it could be him, that it's him, it is him, that he did it on all 3 counts.
Yeah.
So this is the right result. If they had doubts, then they should be not guilty. It should be not guilty.
But yeah, he had a
was
very good lawyer.
well-spoken. Yeah. Well, they had doubts clearly, and they understood the instructions. So
Yeah.
you might be able to soundly sleep at night knowing you put him in prison for ages. Well, I mean, I couldn't soundly sleep at night knowing I put someone in prison for ages and I had
Yeah.
doubts. Good question, Paul. What is next
Yeah.
week's?
Oh, that is a good question. I don't have anything scheduled yet or decided, but Judge Teep, this guy, and Oda, I believe, have a trial starting next week. Also, there was a pro se guy today in Judge Wolf's court who was quite entertaining. That I think is going to trial next Thursday. So I'm going to keep my eyes open. We got a few though. An Oakley trial. That'd be awesome.
What's Oakley?
Judge Oakley. He's in Michigan, I believe, but he's like, you'll like tell a kid, like an 18-year-old with a kid, like, you need to keep your dick in your pants. And he's just really blunt. Oh, really? There's another jail case? Interesting. He's not a sovereign citizen, I don't think, but he's not very... Well, he's got enough experience that the judge said he's going to give him elbow counsel or standby counsel for the first case, but he has another trial coming up after that, and he's probably not going to get elbow counsel for that. I did not catch Carnisol's trial. I saw it, but I think by the time I saw it, like, it was already day 2 or day 3. So hello, what do you have coming up?
Nothing today, but I might have a civil case out of Miami soon with someone we kind of know. So we'll see. But yeah, apart from that, yeah, just stay tuned. Keep your heavy bell on for notifications. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow or the next day.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and end now.
Shannon was today. Really?
Was there one today?
Really?
Menashe?
I'll have a look at that.
Yeah.
Shannon Gardner case is very interesting to me.
Yeah, with bios.
So, yeah. So if Shanna had a hearing, I'm curious.
Over
so
there
I'll
now.
Have a look at that. Yeah. On First
Hopefully
Court
Menashe was
News.
there.
It was only an hour long. Yes, can you stop being all bloody
What? I like
girly
Diane
over?
Menashe.
No shit. Jeez. Diane Menashe.
She's a beast.
God's sake. Every time
Don't get
Diamond
jealous.
Ashley comes up, he's like, "Oh, did you know she got Michael Moore acquitted?" I'm like, I
Michael
know.
Moore?
Is that
William
his name?
Husel.
Oh,
Oh, no, Matthew
No.
Moore. Sorry.
Matthew Moore.
Yeah, not Michael Moore.
Okay, whatever. Just, she's the best lawyer I've ever seen.
No, best female lawyer I've ever seen.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay, best female lawyer you've ever seen. Yeah, I get a chubber over her every time I see her.
Not a chub.
A
Half
chub. You get my pants get tight.
All right, guys. So maybe a Shanna stream soon.
Yeah, maybe I'll have a look and see if it's interesting, because the last couple of hearings had just been all about, oh, did you put the discovery onto the hard drive? Oh no, I don't know what the names of the files were called. Oh, could you please put them onto a zip drive? Oh no, it must be on a USB disk. So yeah, hopefully we're actually talking about some real freaking evidence for once. That'd be
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
All right, guys. I'm going to end now. It has been a lot of fun, and I shall see you guys next week. Toodles.